341. Yearning for Heroes. What is it? What is it? Obito asked eagerly, staring at Sawada Kazuya. It's a mission to serve as the princess's bodyguard, issued by Snow Country, Sawada Kazuya answered after scanning the scroll. A bodyguard? That's basically a princess rescue, right? We'll take it. Obito leapt at the idea. In his head, a bodyguard mission meant enemies, clashes, then a grand rescue, exactly the kind of adventure he loved. Unfortunately, no. Sawada Kazuya said with a regretful shake of his head. Why not? Uncle Sawada, are you kidding us? Tell us about it and then say no. Obito protested. Kakashi stepped forward, thinking it over. Does it require a jonin? If it's B rank or higher, Sawada nodded. I checked. It's an A rank mission. An A rank requires at least one special jonin to lead the team. Obito's face fell. Minato had already left on a battlefield mission not long ago. Uncle Sawada, can't you make an exception? You know our team's strength, Obito begged. He didn't want to miss the chance. No exceptions. If I let you take something like this now, you wouldn't see me around next time, Sawada replied, hinting that he intended to keep working for years yet. Obito sighed, understanding. He wasn't a novice. He knew the rules. Why don't we take another mission? Minato-sensei won't be back for a while, Rin suggested gently. I know, Obito said, torn. The mission appealed to him for more than one reason. A princess to guard, a foreign country he'd never seen. It was everything he'd fantasized about. Does it have to be Minato-sensei? Any jonin should do, right? Kakashi said after a moment. Snow Country, as Kakashi remembered, was an island nation far north, removed from the great ninja village's wars, so it seemed unlikely anything extreme would come up. Sawada confirmed, any jonin is acceptable. An A-rank mission requires at least one special jonin to lead. Obito brightened at once. Minato might be away, but Mu Yue was in Konoha. He'd just finished special training at the ninja school and was resting. Let's go find Mu Yue-sensei. Obito raced from the Hokage building toward Mu Yue's house. Kakashi shook his head but hurried after him. Rin followed. She couldn't bear to let the mission slip away. Obito ran so fast, using his breathing technique to boost his speed, that he barely had time to notice Hiruzen Sarutobi on the way. He only thought, briefly and absurdly, that the third Hokage's nose looked like it had a little blood on it, and wondered what kind of person could make the Hokage bleed. Then he pushed the thought aside and continued. Mu Yue was home, absorbed in a scroll on sealing techniques. He set it down and opened the door. Obito, do you need something? Mu Yue-sensei, can you lead a mission for us? Obito blurted out. It's to protect a princess. It's A rank and requires a jonin. Mu Yue considered the request. Because of the extra week of special training, the Ninja Academy was almost ready to open. Which country's princess? He asked. Protecting a princess could vary in risk. Often such missions were S rank, or they'd specify a well-known strongman to lead. A rank meant the mission's minimum requirements weren't extreme. Snow Country, Obito said, giving Mu Yue the details he'd been told. At the name, Mu Yue's mind filled with memories. He had an excellent memory. Things he'd read long ago resurfaced clearly. He immediately discarded the idea that the princess might be unimportant. He recalled a name, Fukakaze Hana, Snow Country's apparent sole heir. That ruled out any plan that treated her as expendable. Kakashi's past missions in Snow Country flitted across Mu Yue's thoughts. Kakashi had been there twice, first as a boy, battling Snow Ninja and rescuing Fuka, later commanding Team 7 to help her reclaim Snow Country. But Kakashi had already been a copy ninja on that first trip, which meant the timeline didn't fit with Obito, who was only 9 now. The coup in Snow Country, if there was one, must be years off. Mu Yue weighed possibilities. Maybe Snow Country already. Addy had protection and simply asked Konoha for extra security. Maybe the princess wasn't actually valued, though that seemed impossible, or maybe the mission itself was low risk and the request was for stability's sake. The third option seemed most likely, then the first. The second was out. Kakashi said, Mu Yue-sensei, I can ask other jonin. You still have ninja school tasks. Oh, it's already September, Obito remembered, embarrassed. He had been so focused on the mission that he'd forgotten about school. Mu Yue smiled. I have a way to handle the academy. Wait a moment while I pack. He agreed to lead the escort. He couldn't blindly trust whatever plot Obito had recollected, especially since timelines might be shifting. Snow Ninja were capable opponents. If this turned into something dangerous, an ordinary jonin with 3 kids could easily be in trouble. With Mu Yue in charge, Obito relaxed. Kakashi felt better too. Rin thought Mu Yue was incredibly kind. After stuffing a few necessary items into a scroll, Mu Yue took the 3 of them back to the Hokage building. Obito worried that someone else might take the mission, so he checked with Sawada Kazuya as soon as they arrived and was relieved to find it still open. "We'll take it," Mu Yue told Sawada. Sawada quickly registered the mission and handed over the documents. Obito cheered, picturing the beautiful princess, fearsome enemies, and the triumphant rescue that would make them heroes. He already imagined writing an autobiography of their adventures. Based on the documents, Mu Yue sought out the envoy who had come from Snow Country, Asama Santadafu. Mu Yue introduced himself briefly. "I am Habsheng Mugetsu, the Konoha Jonin assigned to escort the Snow Country princess." Asama studied Mu Yue for a moment, then nodded. When he noticed Obito and the others standing behind Mu Yue, he frowned. They can't even be 10. Snow Country is very cold. He wasn't trying to insult them. He simply worried about sending very young shinobi to a harsh climate. The difference between the Land of Fire's temperate weather and Snow Country's bitter cold was vast. "Don't look down on us because of our age," Obito snapped. "We're Konoha elites. We've all been promoted to chuunin. The weather won't bother us." "They're chuunin?" Asama seemed surprised but knowledgeable enough about ranks to accept it. Although young, if Konoha vouches for them, Mu Yue confirmed, and Asama, practical and rule-minded, had his men pack. Snow Country was an island nation. They would have to travel to the East Coast port to catch a ship. Asama had already arranged everything. On the way to the port, Obito gradually realized Asama's concern wasn't contempt, but genuine worry. Their conversation became pleasant. "Brother Santadafu, is your Snow Country princess pretty?" Obito asked as they neared boarding. "Haha, of course she's pretty. The cutest princess." Asama laughed. Obito thought privately that Rin was cuter, but kept it to himself. Rin, looking out over the endless sea for the first time, clasped her hands behind her back and smiled. A gentle breeze brushed her hair and lifted the pink hem of her skirt. Obito stood at her left, admiring the small profile and the way the wind played with her hair. He took out his camera and snapped a quick picture. "What's wrong?" Rin asked, turning to him. "Nothing," Obito said, his face a little red. "The seaside is beautiful, so I wanted to take some pictures." "Let's take more as souvenirs," Rin agreed. After taking a few simple photos, they boarded the ship bound for Snow Country. It was Obito's first time at sea. He was excited at first, then calmed by the ordinary rhythm of the voyage. He settled into talking and laughing with Rin, happy just to be near her. Mu Yue used the time to discuss mission details with Asama. "In October, we hold our most important Matsuri, the Snow God Festival," Asama explained. "Your escort will end after the festival." The Snow God Festival was ancient. People prayed for lighter snow so they could catch fat fish. Centuri, Ezago, the daimyo himself, had performed the ritual, though that tradition had faded. Mu Yue nodded. The job looked like a standard escort mission, only with different people in a colder location. One question nagged him. If Snow Country had its own snow ninja, why send to Konoha for an A-rank escort? And surely the daimyo had his own guards. Mu Yue decided not to dwell on it. For even a small daimyo, the pay for an A-rank mission was hardly a large sum. There didn't have to be any deeper reason. 342. Land of Ice and Snow. Rin, quick, look! Such a big ice block! Obito, bored on the ship, pointed excitedly toward the horizon. Rin Nohara followed his gesture, and a massive iceberg, shimmering under the sun, came into view. Her eyes lit up. This was something she'd never seen back in the Land of Fire. "You'll see plenty more once we reach Snow Country," Asama Santadafu said with a wry smile. "This place is almost all ice and snow. It's been snowing a lot this month." "Isn't it only September? Do they really get snow already?" Obito asked, baffled. "As the name says, Snow Country," Asama replied with a hint of helplessness. A land of endless white might look beautiful, but constant snowfall made life difficult. While most people prayed for rain or wealth, the people here prayed to the snow god for less snow. As they drew closer, Mu Yue's Byakugan swept the region. A continent spread under endless white. He had used the Byakugan often on the voyage. This sea and its frozen environs were dangerous, and a ruined ship would leave them at the mercy of the ocean. For a shinobi of his rank, it wasn't catastrophic. His scrolls held enough food, he could step across water if needed, and with ice release, he could even make an ice slab to rest on. Still, caution was prudent. True to Asama's words, it was snowing heavily when they entered Snow Country's borders. Obito flickered on the deck and caught a falling flake in his palm. Rin exhaled warm breath and watched the snow. Kakashi scanned the surroundings with a steady gaze. Mu Yue held out his hand, feeling the cold as the flakes melted. He liked snow. Childhood snowball fights were some of his fondest memories, but he hated being cold. Transmigrating into the Naruto world had solved that problem. With his current body, he didn't feel winter's bite even without layers. "Welcome to Snow Country," Asama said ceremoniously as they arrived. "So much snow." Obito gaped, scooping a handful off the deck. Despite the name, he'd never expected an entire country to be like this. Then again, the Land of Fire wasn't all volcanoes either. "Kakashi, take this." Without thinking, Obito rolled the snow into a ball and hurled it at Kakashi's back. Kakashi, alert as ever, sidestepped, but Obito had planned ahead. He'd already made 2 more snowballs, predicting Kakashi's alternate dodge routes. Seeing he couldn't dodge all 3, Kakashi planted his feet and tossed a handful of snow with a precise throwing technique. One ball struck Obito square in the face. Rin burst out laughing at the sight of Obito's snow-dusted face. Enraged, Obito switched to total concentration breathing and threw snowballs faster. Kakashi countered with the speed of lightning breathing. The 2 9-year-olds escalated into a full snowball skirmish so fast that Asama, who'd once trained as a samurai, broke into a cold sweat trying to keep up with the kids' movements. This is what a ninja is, he thought, half in wonder, half in defeat. Smack! Smack! 2 translucent gusts struck Kakashi and Obito on the foreheads, halting the fight. "If you want to play in the snow, do it after the mission," Mu Yue said, retracting his hand. He looked apologetic toward Asama. "It's all right," Asama replied, smiling. "The princess is still in Fenghua City, so she doesn't really need protection right now. Since it's a guard assignment, we should at least meet whoever we're protecting," Mu Yue suggested, and Asama led them toward Fenghua City. Obito grew impatient, imagining the rescue and glory to come. The snowy scenery impressed him at first, but by the time they entered the palace area, in Fenghua City, the royal seat, he found the architecture familiar and a little underwhelming. "A living princess. Wonder what she'll be like," he muttered. As they approached a well-lit hall, a serious man in black intercepted Asama. "Are these the Konoha shinobi you've assigned?" he asked. "Yes, Lord Doto," Asama answered, bowing. Fukadoto was the daimyo's younger brother and a powerful official, arguably second in influence in the coup, Intrigue. "Don't let their age fool you. They're all chuunin with real skill, and Mu Yue is a reliable Konoha jonin," Asama added, wary that Doto might dismiss the youngsters because of their youth. Fukadoto gave a brief nod and turned away, showing little interest. Mu Yue watched him leave, running an appraisal through his inner system. Name, Fukadoto. Chakra, 10,500. Skills, water release chakra, nature transformation. Mastery, 215,000. Water release, black dragon blizzard. Mastery. As a potential boss, Doto's stats were unremarkable, no more than a standard jonin. Mu Yue noted that all of Doto's techniques were water release rather than ice release. That didn't surprise him. The snow techniques of Snow Country were likely a local development of water release heavily influenced by the environment, a snow secret jutsu usable there, but not a bloodline limit. Kakashi's Sharingan could copy those jutsu, which fit Mu Yue's theory. Asama filled Mu Yue in. Lord Doto is the daimyo's younger brother and a key official in state affairs. He studied ninjutsu at Snow Ninja Village when young. He's half ninja. If he didn't have to handle governance, he might have become dangerous as a shinobi. Mu Yue listened, thinking a person with both military skill and royal ties could easily cultivate ambition. Obito, meanwhile, wanted only to meet the princess and rush into heroics. They waited in the hall. Footsteps approached, and Obito's face lit up, only to frown moments later. The first to enter was a kindly middle-aged man with glasses. The next was a small, chubby girl in a purple kimono, no more than 5 or 6 years old. Guards followed them in. "Kakashi, princesses are usually girls, right?" Obito asked, genuinely puzzled. Kakashi could only stare. What else would a princess be? Asama, Lord Sosetsu. Asama dropped to one knee and bowed respectfully to the man, Fuka Sosetsu, the daimyo himself. Mu Yue and the others remained standing. Shinobi had no need for excessive formalities among nobles. Please rise. It's not a formal audience, Fuka Sosetsu said with a gentle smile. The little girl clung to his hand and peered at the strangers with bright curiosity. Hello, Lord Sosetsu. I am Hayate Mugetsu. Mu Yue introduced himself courteously. Hello, Brother Hayata, the girl replied readily. Fuka Kazehana's two wide eyes sparkled. She liked Mu Yue immediately. She's the princess? Obito blurted incredulously. This was not the stately, ethereal figure from novels. She was a round-cheeked child. Fuka Sosetsu laughed and led his daughter forward. Kazehana, go greet your older brothers and sisters. They'll be here to play with you until the Snow God Festival. I'm Fuka Kazehana, the princess of Snow Country, and the only princess, she declared seriously to Obito, who visibly deflated. Rin bent down and smiled. Hello, Sister Rin. You're cute too, the child replied, instantly won over. Kakashi merely introduced himself. Kakashi Hatake, I will be responsible for your safety. Brother Kakashi looks very reliable, Kazehana judged, making Obito mutter in annoyance as Kakashi received the brother honorific and he did not. After the brief pleasantries, Fuka Sosetsu had to return to state business, leaving Mu Yue's team, the princess, Asama, and the guards in the hall. Later, Fuka Doto reviewed the intelligence dossier on Mu Yue. He frowned deeply. Fuka Sosetsu's decision to hire Konoha Shinobi had made Doto uneasy. He had been plotting a coup, and the sudden arrival of powerful external nin was a complication. He had immediately ordered inquiries. The report stunned him. Common folk might not grasp the weight of Mu Yue's record, defeating an explosion-release ninja from Iwagakure during a Konoha-Iwa war, taking part in an operation against a Jinchuriki. But Doto knew. Jinchuriki were ultimate assets. Anyone who'd face them and come out with credit was no ordinary shinobi. If Snow Ninja Village possessed even 2 such fighters, it could rival the 5 great shinobi villages. Where had the leak been? Doto asked D himself. Who had informed Sosetsu of Konoha's choice? He suspected a mole in Snow Ninja Village, or that Sosetsu had simply decided to cut the village's budget and look elsewhere. Either way, Doto decided to find the traitor. Even though Mu Yue was strong, Doto was not deterred. One man was still only one man. Doto had Snow Ninja Village and the machinery of power behind him. He'd root out the mole and continue pressing his plan to strengthen the military when he took control. 343. Plans from both sides. Sigh, novels are all made up. Protecting a princess is so boring. Obito slumped to the ground and poked at a snowdrift with his finger. The higher his expectations, the deeper his disappointment. He'd arrived brimming with the fantasy of a heroic mission, rescue a gentle, beautiful princess, duel a fearsome villain, and emerge triumphant. Instead, the reality was a spoiled little princess, no sign of an enemy, and 0 chance to be anyone's hero. You could look at it differently, Rin Nohara said, trying to cheer him up, rolling a snowball between her palms. If someone dared to assassinate the princess, they'd have to be powerful. That would be tough. Obito brightened for a moment. But if I don't beat a strong enemy, how will I become a hero? If you're really that bored, come build a snowman with me. It's a waste not to use snow like this, Rin invited. Let's have a contest. Whose snowman is better? Obito's eyes lit up. Building snowmen with Rin was worth being here. Kakashi, you should join too. I bet you'd make a very delicate snowman, Rin added. Obito's grin faded. With Kakashi involved, it wouldn't be the same. Being good at sculpting doesn't mean you're good at making snowmen, he teased. There's no snow-release ninjutsu to help with sculpting. He meant Kakashi's sculpting skill depended on ninjutsu. Is that so? I think mine will still be better than yours, Obito, Kakashi said, reluctantly accepting the challenge so Obito could learn what true skill looked like. Then just you wait, Obito declared and raced to stake out a spot. Fuka Kazehana watched the 3 happily at work and wanted to join. Children can't hide how they feel. Her guard noticed and warned, Lady Fuka, it's very cold. Playing in the snow could make you sick. I know, I didn't say I'd play in the snow, Fuka pouted. She hated just watching others have fun, but she was a princess and could not be rude. She only sulked a little, remembering her father's teachings about propriety. Could Princess Fuka be their judge? Mu Yue suggested with a smile. As a child, Fuka might indeed catch a chill if she played outside, so Mu Yue offered a way for her to be involved without going out. Can I? Fuka brightened, then remembered regal decorum and adjusted her tone. Ahem. Although I am a princess, I am kind and generous. Since you asked, I'll reluctantly consent to be the judge. Thank you, Princess Fuka, Mu Yue said, grateful. Being judge gave Fuka a role and something to anticipate. She could find faults with impolite Obito or praise Rin if her snowmen were surprisingly ugly. Brother Mu Yue, do you get snow like this in your country? Fuka asked, curious about other lands. It snows there too, but usually not as much or as early. It comes in winter, Mu Yue explained. All 4 seasons are different. Spring isn't hot like summer, but it's much warmer than winter, and flowers bloom everywhere. Summer is the hottest. He described the seasons slowly, picturing spring flowers to make it real for the young princess. Hearing about spring made something long dormant in Fuka's eyes tremble with longing, a sight she'd never seen in snow country. If Obito had described it, she might have doubted the truth, but Mu Yue explained it with a steady patience she trusted. Rin and Obito's snowmen were nearly finished. Obito called to Rin proudly after putting the finishing touches on his, even using his Sharingan to get the proportions exact. He'd even removed his goggles and placed them on the snowman as a finishing touch. Rin's creation turned out to be 2 small snowmen with argumentative expressions, one with a black cloth over its face and the other with a twig goggle on its forehead, an abstract but recognizable pairing that echoed their daily bickering with Kakashi. It's really good. I didn't expect you to be so good at snowmen, Obito, Rin praised, showing hers. You two argue so much. Every memory of you two is an argument, Rin teased, hoping they'd be more harmonious. It's not me who wants to argue, Kaka. She's the annoying one, Obito shot back. I should be the one saying that, Kakashi retorted. Then Rin noticed Kakashi's snowman, a surprisingly exquisite likeness of Fuka, complete with a pouting expression. You're good at everything, Kakashi, Rin marveled. Obito squinted at Kakashi's snowman in disbelief. It looked almost alive, and had been built out of snow in such a short time. Are you all done? The judge will give scores now, Fuka announced from indoors and then stepped outside. You're going to judge? Obito eyed Fuka skeptically as she approached. If Brother Mu Yue hadn't asked, I wouldn't bother looking, Fuka huffed. Since it was at Mu Yue's suggestion she was here, Obito couldn't argue. Fuka examined each snowman carefully. Her verdict for Obito, putting real goggles on a snowman ruins the look. It's not pretty. For Rin, I don't fully understand it, but Sister Rin's snowmen are just pleasing. Her double standards made Obito hot-headed. Though he admitted Rin's snowmen were nice, how could his not be? When she stood before Kakashi's snowman, Fuka's surprise was genuine. Why did you give it such a strange expression? She asked. Because I wanted to, Kakashi replied casually. He'd made it as a way to let the indoor princess feel included. The expression was just for fun. Obito kept staring. Something about that snowman felt off. He poked at its arm and felt solid material inside, rocks layered under the snow. Why are you poking its arm? Fuka frowned at Obito's rudeness. Kakashi, you cheated, Obito accused. Did you make a sculpted core with earth release and then cover it with snow? That's right. Is there a rule against that? Kakashi admitted outright, unbothered by the charge. Obito had no comeback. Who sets rules for snowmen? I don't approve. That's not a pure snowman, he pouted. But it looks neat and goes up fast, Kakashi said. Fuka sided with Kakashi. I think you're just jealous, Obito. Mu Yue watched the exchange and let it pass. Sometimes a little back and forth was better than nothing. Meanwhile, Mu Yue's thoughts were with his main body. Though this was a mission, he wasn't idling away the time. He could be researching sealing techniques or breathing techniques while the shadow clone stayed with Fuka. Since arriving in Snow Country, he'd kept a clone by the princess's side, intending to use the main body to research until the mission ended, if no one interrupted him. On the second day, his main body found an interruption. Ninjas were monitoring them. If these were agents sent by Snow Country's daimyo, Mu Yue wouldn't be worried. He was protecting the daimyo's daughter. But the daimyo hadn't placed watchers on them. A few guards were shadowing Fuka, with an attitude that suggested more than ordinary caution. Mu Yue's investigation revealed that these agents belonged to Fukudoto, and their emblems identified them as Snow Ninja Village operatives. Mu Yue, familiar with common plots, instantly suspected a coup might be brewing. A coup is not improvised. Preparations are made early. He didn't act rashly. First, he observed Snow Country's current daimyo, Fuka Sosetsu. Once he confirmed Sosetsu was genuinely benevolent, Mu Yue decided he had to nip any coup in the bud. He wasn't sentimental, but if a leader like Fukudoto overthrew the daimyo, the people of Snow Country would suffer. From how the Snow Ninja had behaved in the original story, Mu Yue judged that Snow Country's affairs were within his capacity to handle, so he began to quietly investigate Doto's forces using his appraisal technique. Not far away in a warm, quiet room, Fukudoto set his teacup down and asked the question that worried him most. "Have you found the insider?" He wouldn't feel safe until the mole was discovered. For his own protection, he'd been having subordinates use transformation technique to attend court meetings while he deployed ninja to keep Konoha's operatives under close watch. "I sent men to investigate and found no insider, Doto. Perhaps you're being too paranoid. Maybe those Konoha ninja are really just on a mission to protect the princess," Hanhu Bingfeng replied, drinking his tea and frowning. He'd conducted a strict probe of the Snow Ninja and found nothing suspicious. These plans are still in the planning stage. They wouldn't be revealed so easily. And those who actually know are high-ranking village officials. Would they betray a naive daimyo like Fuka Sosetsu? Doto argued. Hanhu Bingfeng, who believed Doto's ideology suited leadership, shrugged. "We do this for Snow Country's strengthening. No Snow Ninja would betray their country." "If Sosetsu really invited someone like Hayate Mugetsu to oppose us, that would be troublesome," Hanhu Bingfeng added. He meant Mugetsu could be a formidable opponent for a coup. Doto relaxed a little at that assessment. "Don't you trust my strength?" Doto asked, fishing for reassurance. "He's just a punk under 20. "Of course I trust you, Doto," Hanhu Bingfeng said. He liked the plan and the promised rewards. "By the way, how are the village's chakra armors coming along?" "There are initial results. They can amplify ninjutsu power, but funding's tight. Continued development is difficult," Hanhu Bingfeng admitted with a frown. "There'll be funding once the plan succeeds," Doto promised. Hanhu Bingfeng smiled. That was one reason he supported Doto. What neither of them realized was that someone not far off was watching and listening. With his Byakugan, Mu Yue observed from a distance and even lip-read their conversation. He found chakra armor that can enhance ninjutsu interesting. Could it be used as an external power bank, he wondered. And he used his appraisal technique on the Snow Ninja leader to learn where his courage came from. 344. Turn over the table. Name, Hanhu Bingfeng. Chakra, 45,000 skills. Water Release Chakra Nature Transformation, Mastery 3,415,000. Wind Release Chakra Nature Transformation, Mastery 315,000. Water Release, Black Dragon Blizzard, Mastery. Water Release, One-Horned White Whale, Mastery. Water Release, Wolf Fang Avalanche, Mastery. Water Release, Swallow Snowstorm, Proficient. Mu Yue looked over Hanhu Bingfeng's stats and could only admire the man's guts. Chakra was Mu Yue's weak spot, but even that weakness dwarfed Hanhu's reserves. Mu Yue's chakra was close to 80,000, nearly twice Hanhu's. The skill gap was worse. Not only did Mu Yue outnumber him in jutsu, he far outclassed him in quality as well. Still, the reconnaissance had been worthwhile. Hanhu might be no match for Mu Yue, but he was someone Kakashi and Obito couldn't handle at the moment. To be safe, Mu Yue decided to leave 2 shadow clones watching over his students, one obvious guardian and one to operate from the shadows if needed. "Since Fuka Sosetsu might have found us, the plan has to change," Fukudoto said, sipping hot tea. "Over the next few days, I'll prepare a probing action. If the Snow Ninja can't find the mole, they'll probe Fuka Sosetsu and Mu Yue directly. The moment they find anything suspicious, they'll launch a coup." Originally, Fukudoto had planned to quietly win the officials over first and minimize losses, but now there didn't seem to be time for that. "Understood. I'll assign a few reliable Snow Village Jonin to stay by your side." Hanhu Bingfeng nodded. The most critical person in any coup was Fukudoto. He was the daimyo's younger brother and possessed the rank and influence to make a takeover feasible. Mu Yue kept his Byakugan active until Fukadoto left the office. After Doto went, Mu Yue continued to use the Byakugan to sweep the Snow Ninja village, searching for the rumored chakra armor. The Byakugan's X-ray vision and long observation range made the job far too easy. He quickly located an underground laboratory. The defenses there were thinner than Mu Yue had expected. The snow country was remote and rarely saw large-scale ninja warfare, but defenses meant little to him. Whether many guards stood between him and the lab or only a handful, the outcome would be the same. Inside, he found a single set of chakra armor being used for research. Mu Yue guessed the completed suits were already in the hands of the Snow Village's higher-ups. He didn't take the armor. Instead, he pulled out a small camera and recorded all the research data in the lab. If the Snow Ninja could build chakra armor, the raw materials had to be in the snow country somewhere. With the technology in hand, Mu Yue wouldn't need someone else's completed suit. He could make one himself. He left quietly, hoping the Snow Ninja would push for another breakthrough soon, so he could freeload off it again. Father, why are all 4 seasons the same here? There are no flowers in spring, and summer isn't even warm, Fuka Kazahana asked, puzzled after dinner. Mu Yue had explained the 4 seasons earlier and had mentioned the snow country's special location, but the little princess still didn't quite understand. Because our country sits at the northernmost edge of the ninja world, it's simply too cold, Fuka Sosetsu said, rubbing his daughter's head and laughing. Though he was the daimyo, Sosetsu cared more for knowledge and technology than palace intrigues. Before he became daimyo, he had visited the Land of Fire and never forgot its spring scenery. He loved the place, but it wasn't his home. The Kazehana family was the royal line of the snow country. Travel wasn't a problem for them, but most of the snow country's citizens lacked the means to see other lands and experience spring's blossoms. Long before he became daimyo, Sosetsu had resolved to change the snow country's environment through technology so all his people could see flowers in spring. To fund civilian development, he had cut the Snow Ninja Village's budget and reduced military spending, redirecting resources toward civilian tech. He had visited small nations without ninja villages that prospered, and Sosetsu came to believe that the snow country might not truly need its ninja. Then can't we just move a little south? Fuka Kazehana finally asked, still not entirely grasping the scale of nations. Ha ha ha, our country isn't a pebble you can pick up and move, Sosetsu replied, amused by his daughter's naivete. Does that mean our country will never see spring? Her voice held real disappointment now. It was one thing not to know what spring looked like. It was another to learn about it and realize she might never experience it. Even bothersome boys like Obito could live in spring. She, obedient and sweet Princess Koyuki, would spend her life in the bitter cold. Of course not. If you believe spring will come, then spring will come, Fuka Sosetsu said earnestly. The money he'd cut from the ninja village hadn't been squandered. The snow country had a rare mineral Sosetsu had discovered contained a mysterious energy. Just a trace of it, added to heating systems, could dramatically increase their efficiency. The ninja called it chakra ore. Sosetsu preferred to call it spring warmth ore. It was the snow country's hope. He planned to build a nationwide heating system to counter the cold. Really? Fuka Kazehana's eyes shone with anticipation. Of course. Why would I lie to my little Princess Koyuki? Sosetsu said, smiling as he pinched her round cheek. With dreams of a sea of spring flowers in her head, Fuka Kazehana returned to her room and fell asleep. She dreamed of the snow country's winter ending, of spring arriving everywhere. Just as she reached to pluck a flower from the imagined meadow, a voice woke her. Lady Koyuki, it's time to get up and eat. She recognized the voice, her maid. Fuka Kazehana was slightly annoyed at being pulled out of that beautiful dream, but she wasn't the sort to scold her maid. She puffed her cheeks in mock displeasure, and the maid immediately apologized, understanding her princess's temperament. Calm again, Fuka Kazehana happily finished her breakfast. Brother Mu Yue, can you tell me more stories about the Land of Fire today? I still want to hear them, she asked afterward, batting her eyelashes in her usual cute way. I can tell stories about the Land of Fire too. Want to hear some? Obito chimed in, suddenly struck by an idea. You? Fukakazehana clutched Mu Yue's sleeve, looking at Obito skeptically. Don't underestimate me. In Konoha, I'm known as the King of Land of Fire stories, Obito declared, pitching his voice up with mock dignity. Mu Yue watched him silently, curious what Obito had in mind. Really? Try me, Fukakazehana insisted, still unconvinced. Obito cleared his throat theatrically and began. During the Warring States period, two mighty clans existed, the Uchiha and the Senju. They were mortal enemies, but the heirs, when they were young, formed a deep friendship, and things started to change. He narrated a version of history he'd heard from Mu Yue, imitating Mu Yue's cadence. Though his imitation was far from perfect, the tale was dramatic enough to capture Fukakazehana for a while. Then, just as the story reached a turning point, Obito rattled off a barrage of questions. Based on that, predict whether the two clans will truly unite and explain why. Analyze how the era's circumstances affect the alliance. Fukakazehana, who had been listening intently, froze. Those weren't story prompts, they were exam questions. Her expression clouded as she realized she didn't know how to answer. She knew the words, but not how to connect them. Her eyes glazed over. Obito, you. Rin Nohara started, at a loss for words. Even Kakashi nearly choked on a laugh. The child had asked for a story. Obito had turned it into a history quiz. What kind of grudge was this? This isn't a story at all, Fukakazehana protested, indignant. She declared Obito her #1 enemy. Such trickery was unforgivable. What are you doing, princess? You're going to inherit the throne. Ni. You should be studying if you want to rule. How else will you govern your country? Obito said with mock seriousness. He'd long wanted to be Hokage and had been teased about it. Now he was teasing someone else for a change. Fukakazehana was speechless. Obito's words sounded reasonable, and her small face flushed with anxiety. She wanted to retort, but she didn't know how. Koyuki, can you take me to see your father? Mu Yue asked, tapping Obito lightly on the head. No problem. It isn't his working hours yet. Actually, I don't think father's working today, Fukakazehana said, brightening at the thought. Then please take me. I have something important to discuss with him, Mu Yue said, stroking Fukakazehana's head. 345. Rapidly changing situation under Fukakazehana's guidance, Mu Yue was led to Fukasotsu's study. To Mu Yue, the room looked more like a laboratory than a private office, crammed with mechanical devices and curious apparatuses. Koyuki, father is busy right now and can't play, Fukasosetsu said with mild apology as he set down the book in his hand. He had assumed Kazehana had come simply because there was no morning assembly. It isn't me who came to find father. Mu Yue Gege has something to tell him, Fukakazehana answered, making it clear she wasn't there to play. Mu Yue nodded to confirm. Thank you for your hard work, Koyuki. This is your reward. Take it and eat it outside. Don't eat it in here, or it'll leave a smell, Mu Yue said, producing several neatly wrapped candies and handing them to her. After all, Fukasosetsu was Kazehana's uncle. It would be cruel to leave a child with unpleasant memories. Kia. Thank you, Mu Yue Gege. Kazehana beamed and trotted out of the room, delighted. Seeing her so happy, Fukasosetsu smiled as well. You're very good with children, Mu Yue. Koyuki likes you a lot, he said, pushing his black frame glasses up with his right hand. Though Kazehana was sensible for her age, she had been raised like a princess all her life. Earning her favor was never easy. Maybe I have more experience. I'm used to teaching students that age, Mu Yue replied with a faint smile. After the brief pleasantries, Mu Yue got straight to the point. Lord Sosetsu, I came because I accidentally discovered that someone in Snow Country intends to rebel. Fukasosetsu's first reaction was skepticism. Mu Yue was ostensibly a hired ninja, merely guarding Kazehana. He wouldn't normally have access to such information. Before Sosetsu could respond, Mu Yue produced a scroll and continued, The ringleader is your younger brother, Fukadoto. Impossible. Doto is loyal to the country. He would never rebel. Sosetsu frowned, finding the claim increasingly hard to believe. For a moment, whatever good impression Mu Yue had built slipped away. Sosetsu even considered ending the mission and sending Mu Yue away. The accusation seemed calculated. But then, Mu Yue unfolded more documents. These are transactions Doto made with the Snow Ninja village, abusing his authority. As daimyo, do you know how close his relationship is with them? The papers detailed long-term diversions of funds and resources to the Snow Ninja village. The leader of that village was not gullible. The support they received couldn't be explained by mere promises. Doto had used his power to enrich and empower the Snow Ninja. Money and projects intended to help the country had been rerouted to the village. The more Sosetsu read, the less he could deny what the evidence showed. How did you get this? Our mission was only to protect Koyuki, Sosetsu asked once he had calmed down. They may have thought I was investigating him. I noticed people tailing me and looked into it. I didn't expect to uncover something this big. Mu Yue answered calmly. It wasn't a lie. Doto had indeed planted watchers on him, which prompted Mu Yue to dig deeper. Strictly speaking, Mu Yue had no obligation to interfere, but he felt Snow Country, the cold, fragile place, didn't deserve more turmoil, so he came to Sosetsu. You were right to bring this. Snow Country doesn't need any more chaos. On behalf of the nation, thank you. But this is serious. I must have it verified before I act. If it's true, I will reward you handsomely, and Koyuki's safety is entrusted to you, Sosetsu said after thinking it over. At first, he had tried to rationalize the documents. Doto had studied in Snow Ninja Village. Perhaps that explained his sympathy, but the detail and authenticity of the records convinced Sosetsu they were genuine. Still, the situation was too big to act on without further verification. Please do so as soon as possible, Mu Yue said, unruffled. He wasn't upset. Doto was family and a high official, and suspicion alone didn't justify action. Ideally, Mu Yue thought, Sosetsu Wu to grant him authority to act directly, take Doto down and capture Hanhu Bingfeng, and the crisis would be resolved. But for now, Sosetsu's caution was understandable. As Mu Yue stepped out, Sosetsu sighed. He hadn't expected such a rupture with his own brother. Doto, how did it come to this? Outside, Fuka Kazehana was still happily nibbling her candies. Let's go, Koyuki. What story do you want to hear today? Mu Yue asked with a smile. I want the story of the Senju and Uchiha during the Warring States period, Kazehana said, thinking about the unfinished history lesson from Obito. You can't stop halfway and then ask those hard questions, she added, still bothered by Obito's earlier cruelty. Of course not, Mu Yue said, patting her on the head, but I'll have to put the story on hold for a bit. I need to take care of something first. Obito and the others didn't know about Fukadoto's plan. They assumed it was still a simple escort mission. Mu Yue gathered Kakashi, Obito, Rin, and the rest, and laid out the new situation succinctly. The situation has changed. Fukadoto is planning to usurp the throne. Prepare for battle. So he's trying to usurp the throne? I thought someone wanted to kidnap the princess, Obito said, first disappointed, then intrigued. Usurp the daimyo's power? That's huge. He sounded excited. Such plots only happened in the climactic arcs of ninja stories. Fukadoto? The daimyo's brother? Kakashi recalled their earlier, serious-faced meeting with Doto in Fenghua City. Should we send Koyuki somewhere safe? Rin asked, worried. Their primary mission was the princess's protection. Not yet, Mu Yue shook his head. With his current strength, there was nowhere in Snow Country safer for Koyuki than by his side. Keep protecting Koyuki as before, but be more vigilant. I've found evidence that Doto intends to usurp the throne, but Sosetsu needs to verify it first. Don't act rashly. Why can't we just arrest him now? Obito asked, baffled. Who do you think he is? Kakashi replied, deadpan. Doto ranked second only to the daimyo. Arresting him wasn't a simple matter. It doesn't matter who he is. Protect the princess and yourselves. That's the priority, Mu Yue reiterated. This would likely be a clash against a ninja village. Obito and company were not in a position to fight an entire village. Mu Yue would be the main force, while they handled smaller threats. Meanwhile, Fuka Sosetsu wasn't foolish. Before the investigation concluded, he ordered a contingent of loyal ninjas to secretly seal Doto's residence. If Doto made any suspicious moves, he could be detained immediately. Doto was the linchpin. Without him, the Snow Ninja wouldn't act so boldly. But Doto had suspected he was being watched and had been preparing his own moves. When he realized his plans might be exposed and that Konoha ninjas were involved, he tightened his arrangements. He contacted the Snow Ninja village to ready a forceful seizure, and he slipped out of the blockade using a transformation technique. When Sosetsu's men confronted what they believed to be Doto, the impostor sneered, mocking their attempts. "You saw through my illusion? How unusual. I practiced imitating Lord Doto while by his side," the disguised figure said, then dropped the act. The realization hit the loyal ninjas hard. The real Doto had slipped away right under their noses. "Apologies, Lord Sosetsu. We failed," the leader admitted, kneeling. "I'll dispatch a search immediately and find Doto." The impostor laughed. "No need to look. Lord Doto will come to you soon enough. Only Lord Doto can bring strength to Snow Country." At the taunt, one of the captured ninjas punched the impostor in the gut to shut him up. In the afternoon, Doto led a force of snow ninja in a surprise attack on Fenghua City. Although Sosetsu had bolstered the city's defenses after Mu Yue's warning, his controlled ninja forces and the regular armies were no match for the snow ninja's power. Fukadoto had been diverting funds for years. He'd weakened the country's military budgets and empowered the snow ninja, who could deploy large-scale snow-based ninjutsu to incapacitate soldiers. Believing Mu Yue and the princess were threats to his plan, Dodo directed his assault toward Kazahana's location. Dodo knew his elder brother too well, Sosetsu wouldn't run. The fighting therefore drifted toward where Kazahana was quartered, the commotion growing louder and drawing Obito and the others' attention. "It's so loud! What's happening?" Kazahana stood on tiptoe to peer into the distance. At that moment, Fuka Sosetsu arrived with a group of guards and, looking apologetic, addressed Mu Yue. "I'm sorry, Mu Yue. I wasted the intelligence you gave us and failed to act fast enough. Please take Koyuki and leave Fenghua City, leave Snow Country. I ask this of you as a father." Events had outpaced Sosetsu's expectations. He hadn't foreseen Dodo moving so quickly. Had he not taken steps to detain Dodo earlier, they might never have finished verifying all the evidence. The force backing Dodo was stronger than Sosetsu had anticipated. Fenghua City's defenses were no match. Though Mu Yue was powerful, Dodo commanded hundreds of snow ninja. Sosetsu decided Mu Yue should take his daughter and break out, while he would remain and sacrifice himself for the city. "Why do I have to leave Snow Country? I don't want to be separated from father," Kazehana protested, troubled. She was curious about the Land of Fire, but this felt different, dangerous and wrong. Because father made a grave mistake and must answer for it. "If you stay, you will be punished as well," Sosetsu said gently, stroking her head. "Then I want to be punished with father." Kazehana clung to his arm with both hands. Sosetsu looked helpless, scooped her up, and tried to hand her to Mu Yue, but Mu Yue didn't take her. He adjusted his black frame glasses and smiled. "Upgrading the mission from guarding the princess to quelling a rebellion isn't a problem. But the commission fee will need to be supplemented later," he said matter-of-factly. Sosetsu felt like a terrible teammate, but for Mu Yue, whose strength was overwhelming, there was little practical difference between the best and worst cases. At worst, it would be a fight with a small, remote ninja village. An opportunity, perhaps, to train Obito and the others and earn a larger reward. "Mu Yue, I must remind you, Dodo has hundreds of ninja on his side," Sosetsu warned. "Kakashi, I need to remind you, Teacher Mu Yue is super strong." Obito piped up, stepping forward with boyish confidence. 346. One man fights one ninja village. "Lord Sosetsu, there's no need to worry. With Lord Mu Yue here, you'll be fine," Kakashi said calmly. They hadn't officially engaged yet, so Kakashi couldn't be sure of the exact skill level of the hundreds of snow ninja facing them. But Mu Yue didn't speak lightly. He'd always been modest. Even when he had been stronger than the Raikage candidate, he hadn't promised certain victory. If Mu Yue said he could put down the rebellion, Kakashi trusted he meant it, and that it would be done without mishap. But Fuka Sosetsu still had trouble believing it. In his world, even holding his own against a few hundred ordinary fighters had been astonishing. These were hundreds of ninja, some notably powerful. He knew the attackers were stronger simply from how quickly his own escort force had been routed. "Father, I don't want to leave." Fuka Kazehana gripped her father's arm with both hands. Tears glistened in her eyes. Fuka Sosetsu sighed. How could he bear to be separated from his daughter? "Mu Yue, I beg you, if it comes to it, please try to take Fuka Kazehana away," he said, setting his daughter down and bowing deeply to Mu Yue. Mu Yue, who had only accepted the mission to protect Fuka Kazehana, had already done everything he could. He'd exposed Fukadoto's crimes and now stood ready to protect them in person. Mu Yue inclined his head slightly to reassure the daimyo, then turned to his 3 disciples. You don't need to attack proactively. Just protect Fuka Kazahana and the daimyo. Neither Fuka Sosetsu nor Fuka Kazahana could be allowed to die. If Sosetsu fell, Snow Country would be thrown into chaos. Kazahana was the core of the escort mission. The disciples had done missions before, and all nodded in understanding. Mu Yue stepped forward toward the advancing snow ninja. Ice release, swallow snowstorm. Hanu Bingfeng gathered chakra in his mouth and spat out a flurry of snow shuriken that rained in every direction. Blooms of blood arched through the air as many guards were struck and injured. Seizing the moment, numerous snow ninja formed hand signs and unleashed ninjutsu, attempting to wipe out the guard force at once. A host of snow beasts, secret technique constructs, charged the guards. Some of the guards were ninja, but their power was inferior to the attacking snow ninja, and many were already wounded. They couldn't withstand so many techniques. Fire release, Phoenix Sage Fire Technique. Just when the defenders thought the battle would end in their ruin, a volley of dense fireballs exploded from behind them, arcing gracefully over their heads and smashing into the ice whales and snow tigers. The blazing conflagration detonated. The snow ninja's ice and snow constructs were annihilated, dissolving into white smoke. That's the powerful ninja Lord Mu Yue hired for Lord Sosetsu. Don't give up. There's still hope. Asama Santadafu spun to shout as Mu Yue approached. He didn't know much about Mu Yue, but the facts already showed they couldn't beat the snow ninja sent by Fukadoto. He had no choice but to trust Mu Yue. Perhaps he really can do it. A sliver of hope lit in Fuka Sosetsu's chest. Obito's faith in Mu Yue, Mu Yue's faith in himself, and the impressive fire release that had just saved them made Sosetsu believe a miracle was possible. Bingfeng, he is Hayate Mugetsu. Do you have confidence? Fukadoto asked Hanhu Bingfeng, eyeing Mu Yue's fire release with suspicion. Aside from Sosetsu, Mugetsu was the man Dodo most wanted eliminated. Ever since Mu Yue had come to Snow Country, his life had been miserable. A ninja who can fight a Jinchuriki is certainly powerful, Hanhu Bingfeng replied confidently. But at this level, even without chakra armor, I can beat him. The effect of Mu Yue's attack could be matched or exceeded by his own signature technique, Black Dragon Storm Kill. If he trains a few more years, maybe he could be someone I can't handle. If he doesn't die, he might become the next Sannin. Though he professed to be unbothered, Hanhu secretly no longer underestimated Mu Yue. He had started training at 6 and spent over 30 years to reach his current strength. Mu Yue was still under 20. All right, I'll leave this place to you. I'll find an opening to send people inside and capture Fuka Sosetsu, Fukadoto said, relieved to see Bingfeng confident. Bingfeng nodded. If Sosetsu escaped, it would be disastrous. You all should fall back a bit. It won't be good if you get caught in the crossfire later. Mu Yue told the guards. There were hundreds of snow ninja coming. He would use large-scale ninjutsu. Since their side lacked many reliable ninja, Mu Yue wanted to avoid accidentally injuring allies. He chose to have the escorts retreat and vowed to take on the entire snow ninja village alone. Asama Santadafu stared, wondering if he'd misheard. Lord Mu Yue, are you really going to fight the enemy alone? A guard ninja asked, bewildered. Mu Yue had been impressive, but this was baffling. There are still quite a few of us who can fight, Asama added, gripping the long sword at his side. Mu Yue shook his head. Your retreat is the best help you can give me. The ninjutsu I'm about to use will have a very wide range. They meant well, but in truth, the guards were liabilities to Mu Yue. Although his chakra control was exceptional, facing hundreds of ninja while avoiding harm to civilians and allies would sap his focus. Ordinary people couldn't dodge attacks the way trained ninja could. Before another word could be said, several snow ninja charged forward. Mu Yue's body flickered, too fast for ordinary eyes, and he appeared among them, throwing rapid punches. Several charging snow ninja were sent flying, smashing into the ground or into one another. From Asama's vantage point, Mu Yue blurred for an instant, and then the attackers were already being flung back. By the time he reacted, Mu Yue had returned to his original spot. Is this the power of a true strong person? Asama murmured in awe. Everyone, Fall back. Don't get in Lord Mu Yue's way, Asama finally ordered. He decided to trust Mu Yue, convinced the man wasn't arrogant, but genuinely powerful. Some of the guard ninja, seeing Mu Yue's strength, nodded and retreated. The snow ninja acknowledged Mu Yue's might as well, but their overwhelming numbers kept them unafraid. They unleashed ninja tools and ninjutsu en masse. Fire release, great fireball technique. Mu Yue switched to flame breathing and spat out an enormous fireball that swallowed up the incoming attacks. Even the great fireball technique carried tremendous power in his hands. Such powerful fire release ninjutsu. Cold sweat trickled down the snow ninjas' foreheads as they watched the fireball as large as a 2-story building. Ice release, one-horned white whale. Hanhu Bingfeng surged forward and condensed chakra into a whale of ice even larger than the fireball to smash it apart. The fire's heat then melted that ice whale. The snow ninjas' morale swelled. Mu Yue was strong, but their leader was also formidable. Silver-white flakes began to fall from the sky, a common sight in snow country. But on the battlefield, the snowfall energized the snow ninja and made the guards frown. "Oh no, the snow ninja's ninjutsu becomes stronger when it snows," one of the defenders said, looking anxiously at Mu Yue. The attackers already had a huge numerical advantage. Now the weather buff made things worse. "Kid, fate wants you dead," Hanhu Bingfeng laughed loudly. The sudden heavy snowfall only tightened the attackers' advantage. "Is that so? Actually, the great fireball just now was one of the weaker ninjutsu I have," Mu Yue said with a faint smile, his calm unshaken by the change in conditions. The environment could influence techniques, but if the power gap was large enough, environment wouldn't matter. Humph. Hanhu Bingfeng was skeptical. That level of fire release had forced him to expend serious effort to stop it. It hardly seemed weaker. Flame breathing, full concentration. Mu Yue tightened his breathing, enhancing his physical abilities, and fire release chakra transformation. He formed hand signs and gathered a tremendous amount of chakra in his throat. Fire release, great fire annihilation. A single, furious exhale erupted from Mu Yue. Scorching flames blasted outward, melting and drying the snow and ice underfoot and incinerating everything combustible nearby. Even falling snowflakes vaporized in that heat. An immense orange-red sea of fire bloomed around him. The temperature was so intense that some of the defending forces broke into a sweat even as heavy snow continued to fall. Those who had stayed too close finally understood why Mu Yue had insisted they retreat. If they had remained nearby, they might have been burned to cinders. Asama Santadafu felt immensely grateful Mu Yue had taken on the mission. Even in a famed village like Konoha, there probably weren't many ninja of Mu Yue's level. "I told you Lord Mu Yue was super strong, didn't I? With him here, there's no problem," Obito said with a proud chuckle from a vantage point above, watching the blazing sea. He fancied he deserved part of the credit. He had once obtained the Great Fire Annihilation and had given it to Mu Yue, thinking Mu Yue could master and teach it back. "Perhaps issuing that mission was the only sensible thing I've done in a long time," Fuka Sosetsu sighed, staring at the towering flames. Hope swelled as Mu Yue acted. Kakashi watched carefully as well, scanning for enemies trying to breach the defenses. The escort force still looked unreliable, and in a fight against hundreds, Mu Yue might miss one or two. "Quick! Use defensive ninjutsu with me," Hanhu Bingfeng shouted. Seeing Mu Yue's terrifying aura up close convinced him. Mu Yue's ninjutsu power was far greater than he'd expected. Standing at the front, Bingfeng felt the heat of the blazing sea, and who, for the first time, doubted the intelligence of not having investigated Mu Yue more thoroughly. He cursed Fukadoto inwardly. He had relied on Doto's information and now felt misled. But there was no time for regret. He had to block this fire release. Ice release, ice wall. Dozens of snow ninja, Bingfeng among them, cast defensive ninjutsu together and raised 3 massive ice walls. A single snow ninja's defense couldn't have stopped Mu Yue, but together their chakra-infused walls could. The thick ice staggered the flow of Mu Yue's fire. Under the gaze of both sides, the first ice wall quickly melted. The sea of fire shrank. When the second wall melted, the fire diminished further. Finally, when the last wall dissolved, the vast sea of fire vanished. Hanhu Bingfeng exhaled. Mu Yue was strong, but not unbeatable. Hundreds could still gang up on one and have a chance. Damn it, If only our side had ninja like that, Asama muttered, watching the flame blocked. He resented that Bingfeng had hundreds to back him, while they had so few reliable fighters for Mu Yue. Very good. You blocked another fire release. Can you do it again? Mu Yue asked with a faint smile. The previous attack had been fierce, but not his full strength. He had been testing the technique. As he spoke, he activated his markings and entered flame-breathing chakra mode. His breathing shifted drastically, and a vast amount of chakra erupted within him, combining with his breathing technique to further enhance his fire release. His aura surged. Is this guy a monster? Hanhu Bingfeng's expression changed. This wasn't the presence of a prodigy or a raw genius. This was a fully matured, strong fighter. 347. Desperately oppressive. Fukadoto, you weren't duped by bad intel from your subordinates, were you? Hanhu Bingfeng couldn't help but curse. He really couldn't hold back. He had expected to be facing a jonin of notable strength, but Mu Yue's performance was that of a legendary strong individual, someone famous throughout the ninja world. Hanhu Bingfeng didn't think Fukadoto had intentionally fed him false information. They were in the same mess together, but he couldn't help feeling Dodo had been stupid to trust such poor intelligence. Impossible. Didn't you say you were sure we'd win? Fukadoto shot back. Hanhu blamed the intel. Fukadoto blamed Hanhu's weakness. The leader of a ninja village was actually afraid of a young man from a great shinobi village. Before the fight, Hanhu had been full of confidence, insisting dealing with Mu Yue would be no problem. Now he wanted to punch Doto into the ground for his arrogance. If he had known Mu Yue was this strong, he would have switched sides rather than cooperate. Still, after a brief exchange of insults, both men calmed. One was a daimyo's general, and the other the second-in-command of Snow Country. Arguing now was pointless. The only thing that mattered was winning and completing the usurpation. Fukadoto and several snow ninja left the center of the battlefield and moved toward the edge, intending to bypass Mu Yue and seize Fuka Sosetsu directly. Doto was the core of the snow ninja force. Sosetsu was the core of Mu Yue's side. If Doto could capture Sosetsu, it would swing the battle in his favor. Mu Yue noticed Doto's movement. After all, Doto himself was a strong shinobi, but he chose to ignore him, allowing Kakashi and the others to handle that task. This was a teacher system mission, not a test of the strongest fighter. What mattered was whether the students grew through the fight. Mu Yue wouldn't let just anyone pass. Certain foes simply couldn't be allowed through. Mu Yue filled his mouth with chakra, converting it rapidly into fire release. Fire release. Great fire destruction. He clapped his hands and leaped, spitting out a torrent of flames far greater than his previous use of the technique. The blast was like a meteor of pure, searing fire. When it struck the ground, it exploded into a vast, roaring sea of flame that turned everything nearby to black ash. The intensity far exceeded his earlier attack. Hanhu Bingfeng broke into a cold sweat as the temperature around them spiked. His back was drenched. He had never seen such exaggerated fire release power. Without waiting for orders, every snow ninja threw themselves into casting ninjutsu to resist the inferno. Those versed in defensive techniques erected walls of ice and packed snow. Others condensed chakra and then used offensive jutsu once the ice barriers failed. They all knew that if they couldn't stop this high-temperature sea of fire, death was certain. "Don't underestimate the ninjutsu I cultivated in the bitter cold," someone shouted. "Snow ninja fighting in the heavy snow will not lose. If this battle ends, I'll retire and go back home to get married." Watching the snow ninja rally themselves to oppose the conflagration, Mu Yue felt a strange déjà vu, as if he were a boss and the snow ninja were players fighting him. To them, Mu Yue's strength was like fighting a boss above their level. This time his flames had grown in both quality and quantity, dramatically raising their power. The giant ice wall that had held off his earlier fire release dissolved in seconds under this onslaught, as if it had never existed. "Ice release! Black Dragon Blizzard!" Hanhu Bingfeng responded, pushing the chakra armor he wore to its limit. He formed hand signs and unleashed massive chakra that coalesced into a giant dragon of ice and snow charging into the sea of fire. His technique was powerful and benefited from the snowy conditions, but it looked naive against Mu Yue's attack, which resembled a natural disaster. The ice dragon was swallowed by the flames. Ice release, one-horned white whale. Elise, breaking dragon fierce tiger. Ice release, ice spikes. After the main ice wall was consumed, every snow ninja capable of ninjutsu unleashed their best techniques, an onslaught of ice and snow beasts trying to hold back the blaze. Still, the sea of fire did not extinguish, it merely shrank in range. Hanhu Bingfeng retreated quickly to avoid being engulfed, while slower snow ninja were burned away. The survivors stared at Mu Yue with obvious dread. One man's jutsu had wiped out only a fraction of the snow ninja, but it had shattered their morale. Hundreds against one, and they couldn't even block a single person. Even the legendary Sannin couldn't be stronger than this, Hanhu Bingfeng sighed, his earlier swagger gone. Mu Yue's strength exceeded his imagination. This clash with hundreds of ninja completely crushed Hanhu's dreams of competing with the 5 great shinobi villages. Those foundations were simply too strong. Konoha not only had Mu Yue, but the Sannin, the 3rd Hokage, and even the Ninetales. Even a snow country Jinchuriki wouldn't stand against that. Hanhu no longer knew how to win. All he could do was drag the fight out and hope chakra limitations would work in his favor. Fuka Dodo, do something useful, he muttered. His last hope was Dodo. If Dodo could take Sosetsu hostage, they might retreat safely, even if the coup failed. On the defender's side, spirits were the opposite, renewed, excited. Asama Santadafu looked at Mu Yue and saw not a person, but a god of fire, spitting flames like a natural disaster. To defeat so many ninja alone, how far have you cultivated your fire release? The guards murmured, awed. In their minds, Konoha had become the undisputed strongest of the great shinobi villages. Someone even thought of the legendary Hokage. If a Jonin's fire release could be this powerful, what must the Hokage's be? I knew teacher Mu Yue had stronger jutsu. This fire release is amazing. I hope I can learn it someday, Obito said, eyes full of longing. To him, Mu Yue was like the protagonist of a ninja tale, arriving to turn the tide when all hope seemed lost. If only my strength were enough, I'd cast this jutsu for him. That thought alone is satisfying. If we get through this, I must give Mu Yue the title of Ice and Snow Hero, Fuka Sosetsu thought. That title was Snow Country's highest honor. Only a handful had ever received it. Watch out! Kakashi suddenly barked. Whoosh! 2 kunai flew for Fuka Sosetsu. Kakashi drew his white fang short sword and with lightning-fast slashes cut them down. The moment the kunai were deflected, 3 snow ninja appeared and attacked Kakashi. Flame breathing, full focus. Sharingan, activate! Kakashi warned, and Obito threw himself into action. Fire release, great fireball technique. Obito spat out a massive fireball aimed at the 3 attackers, forcing them to scatter. Bad guys, Fuka Kazehana! Get behind me! Rin told the frightened child to hide. Fuka Kazehana obeyed, only peeking out to watch. Strange. How did these people get here? Obito wondered aloud, leaping down from the house. Even if Mu Yue missed a few enemies, there were still many guards. How had these attackers slipped through? Because Fenghua City is my home, no one knows it better than I do, Fuka Doto said, emerging last. He had personally led a team to seize Sosetsu because he knew the city intimately. If they couldn't bypass those guards, they wouldn't have tried. Fuka Kazehana saw Doto and cried, Uncle, there are bad guys over there. Come quickly. Doto was unmoved. He concentrated chakra, preparing ninjutsu. This was do or die. Doto, since you know Fenghua City so well, why would you want to destroy it? Fuka Sosetsu asked, exhausted. These days felt like years. Her younger brother had become a rebel trying to usurp the throne, and now the country teetered on the brink. Because I want to build a better new home, Doto snapped, and then released his jutsu. Ice release, Black Dragon Blizzard. With his chakra armor and the heavy snowfall enhancing his power, Doto formed an enormous black dragon of frost and snow and directed it straight at Sosetsu and Kazehana. Fuka Kazehana stared blankly at her uncle's twisted appearance, unable to understand this betrayal. Sosetsu's 3 bodyguards drew their katanas, stepping forward to shield her. Watching the scene, Obito's flames flared hotter. She's called him uncle, and he does this? You bastard, he snarled. His breathing technique intensified. Flame-breathing chakra mode. Obito pushed himself to his peak and unleashed his strongest. Fire release. Fire dragon flame bullet. He poured huge chakra into his throat, completed the nature transformation with the boost from flame breathing, and spewed out a blast of high-temperature flames like a rampaging tyrannosaurus. The fire slammed into the black dragon. Fuka Sosetsu was astonished. She hadn't expected such power from a child like Obito. Fuka Kazehana rubbed her eyes in disbelief. Obito, clumsy and impolite, was actually formidable. But Doto had his chakra armor and the heavy snow weather advantage. Even pushed to the limit, Obito's fire failed to melt the black dragon. Gradually, the frost quenched his flames. Meanwhile, many guards had noticed the commotion and were rushing to support Sosetsu. Doto had brought 3 jonin with him for this reason, one even wearing chakra armor. They were snow country elites. They could hold off reinforcements for a while, but not indefinitely. Lightning release false darkness. Kakashi formed hand signs and fired a razor-sharp lightning spear at the black dragon. The combination of Obito's fire and Kakashi's lightning turned the tide. Under their attack, the black dragon began to disintegrate. Doto frowned. Besides Mu Yue, the youngsters they had underestimated were no pushovers. He forced more chakra into himself. Ice release, twin dragon blizzard. He produced 2 slightly smaller ice and snow dragons. Even with chakra armor in the snow, this technique drained him. He used it because quantity might overwhelm the attackers. After using so much chakra, Doto's face went pale. Watching him, Fuka Sosetsu sighed. "Do you really want to become daimyo that much?" she asked, disbelief and sorrow in her voice. "You say that easily. You were born to be daimyo. I, your younger brother, have to work myself to death, risk everything to even have a chance," Doto snapped coldly. "What daimyo or not, you bastard, stop making excuses." Obito roared and hurled another fire dragon flame bullet. The blast was fiercer, partly hiding Obito and Kakashi in its light, but 2 dragons were harder to overcome. The flames weakened, and Obito began to lose ground. Then Doto noticed something missing. A white-haired brat was gone. Lightning flash! Kakashi reappeared 10 meters from Doto. Doto moved to send one of his black dragons after him, but before he could react, a thunderous clap announced lightning striking. Yellow lightning wrapped Kakashi's body. He had pushed his breathing technique to the limit, converting huge chakra into lightning to boost his physicality. His white fang short sword glowed with a lightning blade. Entering the transparent world and using pure physical power, Kakashi became lightning and charged. A yellow streak passed Doto's eyes, then 2 familiar arms flew through the air. A sharp, searing pain hit him. Kakashi had severed his arms. "How is this possible?" Doto stared at his detached arms on the ground, stunned. He could accept falling to someone like Mu Yue, but never thought he'd be felled by 2 kids who weren't even teenagers. "You should rarely fight," Kakashi said simply, sheathing his sword and leaving the transparent world. He dismissed the chakra from his blade. Doto's ninjutsu was strong, but his combat awareness was poor, worse than the chuunin-level adversaries they'd faced before. Without Doto continuously supplying chakra to sustain them, his black dragons collapsed quickly. Obito flashed forward and struck Doto's face with a flame-empowered punch. With a thud, Doto's body slammed into the ground. 348. Freeze everything. The battle shifted so fast that even someone like Fuka Sosetsu was left reeling. One moment Fuka Doto had been overwhelming, 2 against 1, and the next his arms were severed and he lay helpless on the ground. The thunder of the clash had sent a jolt through everyone. Rin Nohara, fearing to traumatize Fuka Kazehana, pulled the child close and covered her eyes. Kakashi and Obito didn't hesitate. After dealing with Fuka Doto, they turned immediately to help the guards finish off the remaining snow ninja. A guard moved in to deliver the coup de grace to Doto, but Sosetsu stopped him, stepping forward and asking earnestly, "Doto, do you regret everything?" Sosetsu still couldn't understand Doto's motive. He had always had wealth and power. Why attempt a coup? Doto sneered. "Of course I regret it. I regret not preparing sooner. Maybe then I could have completed the plan before you found out." He refused to admit defeat, but there was nothing to be done. Death was inevitable. Sosetsu gave up trying to save him. He tucked Fuka Kazehana closer, using his body to shield her view. The guard understood at once and drove his sword through Doto's chest. "Take his body to the battlefield and use it to compel them to surrender," Sosetsu said. It should help Mu Yue reduce some of the pressure. Doto had been the Snow Ninja's patron. With him dead, their fight had lost its purpose. Just then, someone pointed across the field. Look, what's that? Mu Yue had decided it was time to end the battle. He had already used Great Fire Annihilation, and while that attack had been devastating, it had drained a great deal of chakra. He didn't want to waste everything, better to keep reserves for the unexpected. He'd relied on fire release earlier because his fire techniques were excellent, perfect nature transformation, proficient level flame breathing, and many high-level fire release jutsu. Still, here in Snow Country, an island nation, water and ice techniques were more suited to the environment. Mu Yue shifted his breathing technique. Water breathing, full concentration he called, and entered water breathing chakra mode. Hanhu Bingfeng noticed the change, and having already seen how strong Mu Yue was, dared not meet him head-on. He kept his underlings between them, and tried to counter with ranged ninjutsu. Clapping his hands, Mu Yue converted a surge of chakra into water release and unleashed it. A titanic current, like a tidal wave, roared forward. Water release, super exploding water shockwave. Hanhu's face drained of color. The other snow ninja instinctively retreated a step at the sight of that monstrous wall of water. He's like a walking natural disaster, Asama Santadafu muttered, an islander's instinctive understanding of the sea making the scale of the attack all the more terrifying. Just as I thought, Mu Yue-sensei's water release is far stronger than the hidden mists, Obito said, proud and awed. Kakashi watched over the wall of water and couldn't help but wonder, had Mu Yue's other nature transformations reached a level comparable to the third Hokage? It seemed unlikely, yet Mu Yue's sudden mastery of multiple elements made Kakashi rethink what he assumed he knew. Then the ground exploded. Columns of water burst up everywhere, wells and hidden aquifers forcing geysers into the air. Mu Yue's super-exploding water shockwave didn't just push surface water, it drew groundwater up over a wide area. Wells all across Fenghua City spouted plumes aimed at the battlefield. This was no ordinary jutsu. Super-exploding water shockwave was a forbidden S-rank technique that required three things: water-breathing chakra mode, a high proficiency in water release, at least proficient level with over 3,000 mastery points, and a massive amount of chakra. The sudden eruption of water disoriented the snow ninja. Some were impaled by multiple jets, others were washed off their feet. What kind of ninjutsu is this? Hanhu spat, thrown into confusion by the scale and the sheer unfamiliarity of the attack. He mana, ged to weather the tidal wave, but could not escape the volume of water bearing down on him. The geysers and currents didn't disperse. Instead, they strengthened and congealed, forming an invisible boundary. The water that had swept the snow ninja away pinned them inside a colossal elliptical sphere, nearly 100 meters high, trapping them all within. Hanhu held his breath and began to swim toward the sphere's edge, trying to break it. He had to escape. But Mu Yue had planned further steps. Ice release! Freezing ray! Mu Yue shouted. He poured a fresh surge of chakra into ice release, and a brilliant blue-white beam pierced the water sphere. The entire mass of water froze in an instant. Hanhu Bingfeng, mid-stroke, was turned to ice. The giant water shell became a towering ice sphere, refracting sunlight into dazzling colors. Guards, Mu Yue's disciples, Fuka Sosetsu, everyone stared in stunned silence at the monumental globe. Could he be the snow god sent to save Snow Country? One guard whispered. With the snow god festival approaching and such a miraculous scene unfolding, murmurs of divine intervention spread through the city. Even Asama thought to himself that Mu Yue's abilities seemed superhuman. Kakashi likewise felt the image of Mu Yue shift in his mind. The fire release, the shock of this water release, and finally the bloodline limit, ice release. Each revelation pushed Kakashi further toward recognizing Mu Yue as a genuine prodigy, frustratingly modest and low-key. Rin Nohara watched with longing. If I could learn even 3/10 of Mu Yue-sensei's water release, I could help much more in future battles, she admitted. She'd been mostly a bystander in the fight. If she'd been able to handle water release better, she might have supported Obito's fire release instead of hindering it. She blamed herself for lacking ability, wishing she could be more like Mu Yue. Fuka Kazahana peered out from behind Sosetsu. Father, what's that? It's so big, she squealed. That's the work of our ice and snow hero, Sosetsu said with a weary sigh. The last few days had felt unreal, his trusted younger brother plotting treason, only for those plans to be cut short, and then, when things seemed hopeless, an impossibly powerful ninja arriving who could do what Mu Yue had just done. It all felt absurd and unbelievable, like a dream. Everyone remained silent for a long moment, staring at the shimmering ice sphere that held the enemy frozen inside. 349. Be a hero, what a huge ice ball! If that thing starts rolling, Fenghua City will be leveled, Obito said, rubbing his chin. The remark fell flat. A few people stared at Obito in disbelief. Others stared at the ice sphere, sweat beading on their foreheads. If it actually rolled, the destruction would be catastrophic. I was only joking to lighten the mood, Obito added with a laugh. This is Teacher Mu Yue. He wouldn't make a mistake like that. Now is not the time for jokes, Rin Nohara muttered, rubbing her forehead. The fight had just ended. Everyone was relieved, and then Obito had to blurt out something like that. Admit it. Aren't I amazing? You should thank me properly. I'll let things slide for what happened before, Obito boasted, glancing over as Fuka Kazehana searched the crowd for someone. You think I've forgotten what you said? You rude Obito, calling me not princess-like and not likable. Slandering a princess is a crime. Fuka huffed, puffing out her cheeks. Obito's earlier insult still stung, even though Fuka Sosetsu and Mu Yue had called her cute. A mere Obito saying she wasn't likable, it rankled. What's slander? I'm telling the truth. You should learn from the princesses in novels. Obito replied, completely unfazed. Fuka's hands clenched. She wanted to punch him, but as a proper princess, she only thought about it. After all, Obito had been her benefactor. Still, thank you, she said in a tiny voice. Despite his faults, rudeness, bad taste, Obito had been impressive when he threw that fire-release punch. Obito, with ears for praise, threw back his head and laughed triumphantly. Embarrassed, Fuka rushed to her father's side. Everyone then walked onto the battlefield. Standing beneath the giant ice globe, they felt small. Mu Yue's power was overwhelming. Mu Yue, you saved Snow Country, Fuka Sosetsu said solemnly, bowing in thanks. Only now did he understand why people trusted Mu Yue so implicitly. When Mu Yue had warned him about Fuka Dodo's plot, Sosetsu hadn't believed it and missed the chance to stop the usurpation. If Mu Yue hadn't arrived, the Snow Ninja's attack might have killed them all. Fuka Sosetsu was quietly relieved. Mu Yue hadn't left earlier, otherwise he might never have seen his daughter again. The guards bowed as well. Without Mu Yue's intervention, they'd likely be dead. Obito felt a swell of pride. After all, he was part of Mu Yue's group. So the mission is complete? Mu Yue asked with a faint smile. Though Fuka Sosetsu led the formal thanks, Mu Yue's chest didn't swell. In his mind, he hadn't saved the whole country. He'd saved Fuka Kazehana's family and the people of Fenghua City. Fuka Dodo's coup, even if successful, wouldn't have meant mass slaughter. Mu Yue was realistic about what he'd done. It's complete and perfectly executed, Fuka Sosetsu said. Mu Yue had left a deep impression. If ever they needed ninjas from outside, he would call on Konoha and Mu Yue. Brother Mu Yue, how did you make that giant ice ball? It was amazing. Fuka Kazehana spread her arms, trying to sketch the largest possible circle in the air. Make a water sphere first, then freeze it, Mu Yue answered simply. Fuka blinked, half understanding. Her puzzled face made Obito burst out laughing, and laughter spread through the group. With Fuka Dodo dead and the Snow Ninja routed, the defense of Fenghua City was a clear victory, though there was still work to do. A usurpation implicated more than one person. Other Snow Country officials had been involved. They needed to assess the damage to Fenghua City and start repairs. Ironically, much of the city's damage had been caused by Mu Yue himself. He'd used large-scale ninjutsu, and destruction was inevitable. Yet everyone, even Fuka Sosetsu, ignored that. Mu Yue had been fighting the Snow Ninja. The damage was blamed on the attackers. There were also rewards to decide. After deliberation, the Snow Country leaders decreed the title of Ice and Snow Hero for Mu Yue alone. Obito and the others would receive Ice and Snow Warrior. They had all contributed, but Mu Yue was the decisive factor. If he hadn't held the Snow Ninja, Fuka Doto would never have needed to lead that detachment against the daimyo. The slightly lower title for the others reflected that. The title brought significant privileges. noble treatment in Snow Country, monetary rewards, and gifts. Since the original mission was to protect Fukakazehana until the Snow God Festival ended, Fuka Sosetsu arranged for the titles to be bestowed during the festival as a formal display of gratitude. With the crisis resolved, Mu Yue took his disciples to continue training and wait for the festival. Snow Country's environment was harsh for ordinary folk, but perfect for ninja training. Close to the sea and constantly snowy, it was ideal for practicing water release. The cold made fire release harder, which in turn helped strengthen the disciples' bodies and techniques. Teacher Mu Yue, aren't Kekkei Genkai, bloodline limits, very rare? Why do all the ninja here seem to use ice release? Obito asked during a break. It was common ninja knowledge. That's not a bloodline limit at all, Mu Yue replied bluntly. The so-called ice release used by Snow Country's ninja was pseudo-ice release, basically water release or a snow-specific secret ninjutsu. It was water release chakra nature transformation, and it might only work in Snow Country's conditions. Really? But there was ice, and I thought someone called it ice release, Obito said, confused. He hadn't expected fake bloodline limits. You can call your jutsu whatever you like, Mu Yue said dryly. No one can stop you from shouting Water Dragon Bullet and then doing Fire Release, Great Dragon Fire Technique. A small village lacking understanding will name things based on how they look. Obito grinned. Couldn't that trick an opponent in a fight? If you yell one thing and do another, you might confuse people, Kakashi said, having wandered over from training. But in that battle, the super exploding water shockwave was the real decisive move. The freezing finish was secondary. Mu Yue nodded. Even the Snow Ninja's pseudo-ice release gained a boost from being in Snow Country. Mu Yue's true ice release in the same environment was even more effective, like a fish in water. So what you used was real ice release? Obito asked, remembering the giant ice sphere that still hadn't melted. Mu Yue confirmed, yes, what I used was ice release, but I only recently mastered it. It's not very strong yet. Obito rolled his eyes. Not very strong? It looked pretty powerful to me. Still, Mu Yue's claim filled in some gaps. Maybe he'd learned the real thing by studying the Snow Ninja's techniques and applying his own water and wind nature transformations. It sounded like Mu Yue. It's probably the environment that helped. Against enemies, water release was the main thing, Kakashi added. That shockwave did the heavy lifting. The freezing sealed the deal. It doesn't matter, Obito said, waving a hand. Teacher Mu Yue's ice release will catch up to his other skills eventually. I'm looking forward to it, Obito added with a chuckle. Tomorrow's the Snow God Festival, my first time at another country's Matsuri, and as a hero, no less. He was pleased. The princess hadn't matched his imagination, and the mission hadn't been what he expected, but the outcome was exactly what he wanted. Saving the princess, saving the country, becoming a hero. He only regretted that he'd be titled Ice and Snow Warrior instead of Ice and Snow Hero, but he had no doubt who deserved the hero title. 350. Mission ended. The Snow God Festival was the biggest event in Snow Country. Officials and commoners alike treated it with great reverence, and the usually quiet land buzzed with life. Traditionally, the festival centered on worship of the snow god, but this year there was an extra draw, the conferring of the title Ice and Snow Hero. Rumors that the giant ice sphere had been created by Mu Yue made people even more eager to see the new hero. To many, the feat bordered on the miraculous. The ceremony was held in Fenghua City, on the battlefield where Mu Yue had fought the Snow Ninja. The fighting had flattened the area. There was no sign of the buildings that had once stood there. Although the field was large, the crowd was massive. Fuka Sosetsu had to deploy numerous guards to keep order. The giant ice ball still sat where Mu Yue had placed it, now reinforced with ninjutsu so it wouldn't roll into the city. How did such a huge ice ball come to be? Is this ice and snow hero the snow god reborn? An old, devout believer cried out. Even the snow ninja present admitted Mu Yue's ninjutsu seemed impossible. To ordinary folk, it looked nothing short of supernatural. If only the hero's hair were blue, it'd be perfect, someone murmured, thinking Mu Yue's aura felt more like warm sunshine than biting cold. Before the ceremony even began, the crowd shared one comment after another. Once the ceremony started, guards hushed the throng. Fuka Sosetsu approached Mu Yue solemnly. carrying a finely made blue cloak. Nearby, a storyteller read the official account aloud: the discovery of Fukadoto's rebellion, the intelligence gathered, Fuka Sosetsu's hesitation that lost the best chance to capture the usurper, and then the crisis that followed. At the darkest hour, Mu Yue had stepped forward, cutting down hundreds of snow ninja and thwarting Fukadoto's plot. The official account had initially avoided mentioning Fuka Sosetsu's early mistakes, focusing instead on Mu Yue's deeds and on Fuka Sosetsu's later actions. Officials worried that recording the daimyo's error would harm his prestige, but Fuka Sosetsu insisted the record be truthful. He would admit his mistake and make it a warning for the future. Fuka Sosetsu draped the cloak over Mu Yue himself and, voice grave, thanked him for his contributions. "Thank you, Mu Yue, for everything you have done for Snow Country. You will always be Snow Country's ice and snow hero." Thunderous applause swept through the crowd. After the hero came the warriors. Their deeds were announced. They received congratulations, and symbolic rewards were presented. The commoners were stunned when the three ice and snow warriors stepped forward. Obito and the others looked so young, practically children. But when they heard that these youths had protected the daimyo's princess and personally defeated Fukadoto, the crowd's expressions shifted to admiration. The difference between people is huge. At their age, I was still merely playing in the snow, one person admitted. They're all promising. Maybe one day they'll be heroes too. Someone else said, offering blessings. Obito felt the warmth of the crowd, and the smiling faces buoyed his spirits. "One day I'll be a hero in the land of fire, in Konoha," he promised himself. He knew his recognition here was largely due to Mu Yue, but that only spurred him to work harder. If he kept at it, he could become a true hero too. When the formalities ended, the festival activities began. Worship of the snow god, ski races, snowman building contests, fishing competitions, the kinds of games Snow Country people loved. Because Mu Yue and the others were on a mission, they went wherever Fuka Kazehana wanted to go. Fuka Kazehana had boundless energy and wanted to try everything, so they ended up sampling most of the festival. Competitions brought out the rivalries. Fuka Kazehana teased Obito for his poor skiing and frequent falls. Unwilling to lose face, Obito flipped on his Sharingan, copied a skiing master on the course, and improved instantly. "That's cheating, Yuka Kazehana called. In the snowman contest, Kakashi produced a remarkably intricate snowman. Obito joked it was Earth-release cheating. After inspection, the judges confirmed Kakashi had built it with ordinary snow. "I've been in Snow Country long enough that my snowman skills have improved," Kakashi said coolly. "Some people think others can't do something only because they can't do it themselves," Fuka Kazehana added softly. Obito, embarrassed, squatted and drew circles in the snow with his finger, while Rin quietly recorded the scene with Obito's camera. At a patch of deep, powdery snow, Obito couldn't resist forming a snowball and tossing it at Kakashi. Kakashi, alert, dodged, and the snowball hit Fuka Kazehana as she skipped by. "Who threw that?" She turned, dazed, scanning until her eyes fixed on Obito, hands hidden behind his back. "Beautiful snow makes people want to make snowballs, and if you make one, isn't it a shame not to throw it?" Obito tried to explain. "You rude Obito. You even dared to attack the princess. Death penalty." Fuka Kazehana thundered, taught by Mu Yue to pretend martial severity. She inhaled, formed two perfect snowballs with both hands, and hurled them at Obito. Obito dodged, but Kakashi, seizing the moment, launched a snowball that nailed Obito instead. A full-fledged snowball free-for-all erupted, and Rin joined in. Obito, determined to avoid getting hit, used focused breathing and activated his Sharingan. Kakashi, seeing Obito's Sharingan, unceremoniously activated his transparent world to augment himself. Rin, with fewer flashy techniques, used a water prison technique to block incoming snowballs. A simple snowball fight turned into a clash of near superhuman skills, something that left little Fuka Kazehana wide-eyed and bewildered. When Mu Yue joined in, even she seemed helpless before the display. Mu Yue began casually making snowballs, but then added wind release for suppressive fire, sending a volley with the force of 1,000 arrows. To be fair to the princess, Mu Yue aimed so most of the barrage struck Kakashi and Obito, leaving only a single snowball headed squarely for Fuka Kazehana. "Mu Yue-sensei? That's not fair," Obito protested as he found himself overwhelmed. Fukakazehana, seeing Obito's plight, ridiculed him. You used ninja power too, didn't you? Obito could only glare. His ninja power was no match for Mu Yue's. When the day ended, Obito and the others were exhausted. Supposedly they had been on guard duty, but in fact they'd spent the day playing with Fukakazehana. Fukakazehana, who had even less stamina than they did, fell asleep almost as soon as they returned. This leisurely, lively routine continued for 3 days. On the 4th day, the festival wound down, and their mission was complete. Mu Yue-sensei, can you stay a little longer? I can ask my father to keep posting missions to Konoha, Fukakazehana pleaded, reluctant to see them go. She'd grown fond of Mu Yue. He was handsome, a good storyteller, praised her cuteness, and taught her things. No, when a mission ends, it ends. If there's a chance, I'll come back to Snow Country, Mu Yue answered gently. He had gained a lot from this trip, a substantial supply of Snow Country's chakra ore, the Snow Ninja's chakra armor, and related knowledge. You can multiply yourself, right? Why not leave one of you here? Fukakazehana tried again. Before Mu Yue could refuse, Fukasosetsu intervened. Little Snow, don't make it hard for Mu Yue. Others may need him too. Even Fukasosetsu, who liked the idea of a strong guardian staying in Snow Country, knew it was impossible. Goodbye. Don't cry sad tears. I hope next time you'll be a bit more princess-like, Obito grumbled. Fukakazehana, offended at being told she wasn't a proper princess, snapped back. When Mu Yue-sensei leaves, when Rin-chan leaves, when Kakashi-ni-chan leaves, I'll be sad. Only when you leave will I be happy. She was determined to be a kind and righteous princess, and Obito's remark rankled. Shh, I even prepared a farewell gift for you, Obito muttered, clearly proud of himself. Kakashi's mouth twitched. He thought Obito's idea of a gift was cruelly mischievous. A gift? Fukakazehana eyed him suspiciously. There really is one. We all prepared something for you, Rin said gently. Fukakazehana brightened at Rin's words. Then I take back what I said. Today I won't dislike you. I'm sad you're all leaving, she corrected herself. Open the gifts when you get home, Obito instructed. It wasn't appropriate to tear into them in public. Fukakazehana, curious but obedient, nodded. On the ship, as they sailed away, Fukakazehana shouted, Goodbye, Mu Yue-sensei. Be sure to come play in Snow Country when you have time. Mu Yue smiled warmly in response. Rin waved, Kakashi nodded, and as the shoreline receded, Obito let out a triumphant laugh. Back at home, Fukakazehana eagerly opened the gifts. Mu Yue's present was on top, a calligraphy scroll he had written and a small booklet of breathing techniques for strengthening the body. She smiled with satisfaction, deciding to treasure the scroll and practice the breathing techniques so she could hit Obito and the others more often in future snowball fights. Kakashi's gift was an exquisite statue of Fukakazehana. She placed it on her cabinet with pride. Rin's gift was a painting of the 4 of them at the Snow God Festival. She had it framed and set by her bedside so she could always remember the day. The last gift was from Obito. Fukakazehana untied the ribbon and found a thick stack of papers covered in writing. A farewell letter? She wondered, flipping through it. The first page asked, who was the first person in Snow Country to be granted the title of Ice and Snow Hero? The next page listed names, 1 Jumiochi, 2 Natsuki Tahara. Further on were prompts. Please read the following materials and analyze the reasons for Snow Country's perpetual cold. Fukakazehana's fist tightened. These weren't letters at all. They were test papers. She swore that if she ever became daimyo, she would assign Obito a mission consisting of 1,000 test papers. Humph, I won't do them, she declared, at least at first. Then she noticed a small note in Obito's handwriting. These are practice tests I made based on Mu Yue-sensei's. They're necessary training to become a qualified princess. If you complete them all, maybe Mu Yue-sensei will look at you differently next time we meet. Good luck. A little fist was drawn next to the words, good luck. Fukakazehana hesitated. If completing those papers might make Mu Yue see her with new eyes, perhaps it wasn't impossible. Surely papers written by mere Obito couldn't be that hard. On the ship, Obito lamented, what a pity. I wanted to see her face when she opened the gift. Rin looked at him in mild amazement. How did you manage those test papers? There are so many facts and points about Snow Country. Did you read a lot? She asked. I just used Mu Yue-sensei's tests as a template. The actual questions came from the scholars in Snow Country, Obito said smugly. Kakashi could only stare. Obito's quick mind seemed to shine most when he was making mischief. Mu Yue and his companions returned to Konoha without incident, their mission in Snow Country successfully concluded. 351. Flying Thunder God Technique. It's amazing. Snow Country is in the middle of a full blizzard, yet there's not a flake of snow here, Obito said, standing at Konoha's gate and squinting up at the glaring sun. Mu Yue had given them a brief explanation, but Obito still couldn't fully grasp how it worked. All he knew was that it felt like nature's own craftsmanship. That's right, Konoha won't see snow for a long time, and when it does, it won't be nearly as heavy as there, Rin Nohara agreed. Good thing you brought your camera, Obito. A landscape like that deserves to be documented. Hehe, Obito thought with a proud smile. He carried his camera on missions now. What began as a desire to share scenes with Rin had become a habit. He liked capturing the places he visited across the ninja world. Everyone dismissed for now. You get tomorrow off. Normal training resumes the day after, Mu Yue announced. This mission had been manageable for Obito and the others, mostly because Mu Yue had taken the lead. But the journey home had been long and exhausting, so a rest day was well deserved. His 3 disciples nodded and dispersed. Mu Yue himself headed up to the Hokage building to file the official report. Fukusosetsu had sent word to Konoha about the mission changes and offered extra payment, but Mu Yue still had to complete the proper paperwork. Obito watched Mu Yue go and glanced at Kakashi out of the corner of his eye. His body felt tired from travel, but he didn't want to rest. He wanted to practice his breathing technique and finish perfecting his incomplete fire-release chakra mode. If Kakashi rested while he trained, Obito would put himself ahead. If Obito trained an extra day and Kakashi trained one less, he'd gain a 2-day lead. With that edge, Obito pictured himself surpassing Kakashi and decisively proving it in front of Rin. My body is pretty tired. I should get some good rest, Obito said, rolling his eyes and stretching. In his experience, people tend to slack off when others act tired. If he looked tired, maybe Kakashi would too. After running all the way back, I'd feel a lot better after a good night's sleep, Rin offered with a gentle smile. Mu Yue preferred not to waste time on return trips. He pushed his students to travel hard as part of their training. Obito mentally gave Rin a thumbs up. If Kakashi slept for a week, so much the better. I'm fine. This is much easier than the training we did a while ago, Kakashi replied, shaking his head. Compared to the brutal, constant-state breathing training, this felt mild, so much so that Kakashi could actually sleep standing up during that earlier regimen. Obito's expression turned serious. That meant training. I'm only saying we should rest because I want to be ready for the tough training the day after tomorrow. Rest makes training better, he argued, extolling the virtues of recuperation. Kakashi considered it. There was merit to the point. Seems like you've grown from this mission, Obito. It's rare to see you think of so many things, Rin chuckled, covering her mouth. It's not that you notice, Rin. I'm Uchiha Obito. I'm thoughtful and good at thinking, Obito said, puffing out his chest. Thinking was one thing. Being successful at thinking was another. What kind of good thinker scored single digits on a test? Rin laughed and played along. Obito had done well on this mission, and she enjoyed his pride. Kakashi decided not to argue further. He'd let Obito rest and do his own training, preserving his lead quietly. Obito's face lit up. In his mind, he already saw Kakashi groveling at his feet. The reason I surpassed you isn't because I'm more talented. It's because I used the time you wasted resting for training, he imagined declaring. Obito, why are you smiling like that? Rin asked, puzzled. Kakashi glanced at him too, curious and a little suspicious. Realizing his expression might look odd, Obito tried to compose himself, but the grin wouldn't quite go away. Ahem. I was picturing Fuka Kazehana opening her gift and finding it full of test papers, he blurted without blinking. Rin smacked her forehead and smiled helplessly. You used to say you wanted to protect the princess, and now you're planning pranks. Obito only chuckled and said nothing more. To mislead Kakashi, he deliberately left first, heading toward the Uchiha compound. Rin, seeing both Obito and Kakashi planning to rest, decided she was tired enough and went home. Meanwhile, Mu Yue completed his mission report with the third Hokage. Mu Yue, you've done very well. The daimyo of Snow Country praises you in his letter. Few ninja get such commendations, Hiruzen Sarutobi said, pipe in hand. Even minor daimyo were notable, and Snow Country rarely sent missions to Konoha. Mu Yue's actions had increased Konoha's reputation there. Mu Yue accepted the praise modestly. He had indeed put in a lot of effort, nearly single-handedly quashing Fukadoto's coup. How about this? Hiruzen continued. Is there any specific ninjutsu you want as a reward? I can arrange training for any technique we have here. Mu Yue thought for a moment. The Flying Thunder God technique. Hiruzen's expression shadowed. It wasn't that the Flying Thunder God technique was too dangerous to grant. Rather, it was notoriously difficult and required a rare space-time affinity. Even the elders had not mastered it. Since its development, only 2 in Konoha had ever wielded it. Senju Tobirama, its creator, and Minato Namikaze. Hiruzen worried Mu Yue might not actually be able to learn it, and he didn't want Mu Yue to be led astray by Minato's example. Are you sure? The Flying Thunder God technique is the second Hokage's creation. Don't be misled just because Minato managed to learn it. Few can. It usually depends on a special talent for space-time, Hiruzen warned. Mu Yue was resolute. If he succeeded, the payoff would be enormous. He had proficiency scrolls saved up and could quickly bring the technique to mastery. If he failed, there was no real cost. Hiruzen took a long drag from his pipe, blowing out a cloud of smoke. Very well, I'll send someone to deliver the reward, he said, more resigned than convinced. He himself had wasted years trying to learn Flying Thunder God in his youth before giving up. Still, if Mu Yue truly had space-time talent, Konoha might gain a second yellow flash. Third Hokage, have you ever tried combining chakra natures to create a bloodline limit? Mu Yue asked, changing the subject to chakra nature transformation. I tried. It's extremely difficult to combine 2 nature transformations to form a new one. Requires the right opportunity, Hiruzen admitted. He was well versed in the 5 great natures and knew combining them could theoretically create unique abilities, but he'd failed to do so. He'd chosen to pursue combination ninjutsu instead, which had worked out well for him. Hiruzen's expression shifted as a thought occurred to him. Could it be Mu Yue? Mu Yue didn't keep him waiting. A dazzling blue-white glow ran through his hand, and he formed a block of ice in his palm. Ice release, Hiruzen said quietly, staring at the ice with a mix of surprise and curiosity. Bloodline limits were different from normal ninjutsu. They could be inherited. If Mu Yue truly possessed ice release, and if his descendants proved capable, it could mean the birth of a new clan. Mu Yue spun a story about Snow Country's cold techniques, inspiring his development of ice release, suggesting that Konoha might benefit if water and wind nature shinobi were organized to learn Snow Country's snow ninjutsu. Hiruzen smiled at the idea. While he doubted outside practitioners could replicate Snow Country's power easily, he credited Mu Yue's talent as the crucial factor. You're not giving yourself enough credit. Those techniques helped, perhaps, but your talent did the real work. In a good mood, Hiruzen completed the formalities. Mu Yue made a shadow clone to return home, while his main body departed for the south border forest. There, Obito and Kakashi faced each other under the trees. Kakashi, didn't you say we should balance work and rest? Why are you in the south border forest? Obito asked. Didn't you say you were tired and needed to rest, that training would be better after? Kakashi shot back. They paused, each realizing they'd been trying to outmaneuver the other. Obito may have planned to train with Rin, but circumstances had him training with Kakashi instead. Neither wasted time. Kakashi slipped quickly into his training rhythm, and Obito followed suit. Cunning, hateful Kakashi, Obito muttered to himself as they began. Once I surpass you again, I'm going to spar with you every single day. 352. Life Mission Rewards Disciple. Uchiha Obito, along with Kakashi Hatake, had completed a mission. The growth rewards flashed up, chakra plus 680. An extra reward, granted by the teacher himself, added chakra plus 340. Obito's strength rose, his reputation increased, and his qualifications improved. His odds of becoming Hokage edged up slightly. From the mission's progress rewards, he received chakra 1000, a bloodline enhancement scroll, and mastery of fire release, dragon flame release song. That evening back home, Mu Yue began sorting through everything they'd gained. First, the growth rewards from the mission. The two disciples together had brought in a total of 1,020 chakra. That matched Mu Yue's expectations. His students had barely been present in the mission. If he hadn't let Fukadodo go in the end, the take might have been even smaller. Then Mu Yue checked Obito's life mission settlement. Name Uchiha Obito Life Mission. It is not the one who becomes Hokage who is recognized by everyone, but the one recognized by everyone who can become Hokage. Main goal, become the Hokage of Konoha Ninja Village. Mission progress, 12.3%. Before the mission, Mu Yue had seen Obito's progress at 9.8%. He'd expected it to round up to 10%, but he hadn't anticipated Fukadoto planning a coup before they even set out. What should have been a princess protection mission had turned into putting down a rebellion. The first settlement rewards whetted Mu Yue's appetite for future ones. A 10% settlement had yielded a mastery skill and a rare item like the Bloodline Enhancement Scroll. Higher progress settlements, he figured, must be even better. Mu Yue clicked on the Bloodline Enhancement Scroll. It was clearly the best of the three rewards, practically unobtainable by normal means. A selection box popped up on his panel. Selectable option, Byakugan. Mu Yue paused. He'd already gotten a Byakugan Purity Enhancement reward earlier. The two seemed related. One improved the purity of the Byakugan, while this scroll offered a choice. He didn't plan to save it. He selected Byakugan. As soon as he used the scroll, an odd sensation spread through his body. Because of the transparent world, Mu Yue knew his body intimately and immediately noticed a new, beneficial change. The most obvious effect was a small increase in his chakra limit. Opening the panel, he saw the number rise by 1,000. Name, Hayate Mugetsu. Chakra, 84300. Mu Yue had a thought, burned chakra to create a shadow clone, then began refining chakra. A smile creased his face. The speed at which his chakra recovered had improved. Compared to the raw increase in his chakra pool, the recovery boost mattered more. He roughly measured it and found recovery had increased by about a quarter. While the recovery still wasn't proportional to his total chakra, it was a huge improvement. He activated his Byakugan and scanned the village. He saw Tsunade walking with Shizune. The viewing range had noticeably extended. Mu Yue poured more chakra into the Byakugan following the new sensation in his mind, and then looked at the glass on his desk. As he infused chakra, an aura built around his gaze. The cup developed cracks and shattered under that pressure. Mu Yue frowned thoughtfully. A normal Hyuga Byakugan didn't have that kind of destructive capability. It felt as if his Byakugan was evolving toward an Otsutsuki-like form, but he still had a long way to go. The ability he'd just used was powerful, but not cost-effective. The chakra he'd spent to crack a glass with his vision could smash a rock easily if focused through a fist. Long-range vision was far more practical for now. Aside from the system rewards, Mu Yue had other practical gains. 2 pieces of chakra armor, one from the Snow Ninja leader, the other from the Snow Country laboratory. Unfortunately, the armor's strength left something to be desired. He tried one on and found the enhancement almost negligible unless he deliberately used very little chakra for ninjutsu. He planned to study the Snow Country data and try to develop his own version, an external power bank model that would suit his needs. Mu Yue considered handing the chakra armor over to Konoha for research. They would progress faster than him working alone. But there was a problem. Though the armor did little for Mu Yue, it could boost even elite Jonin, and the special ore used to make it was only found in Snow Country, and then only in limited quantities. If he revealed that information, Snow Country would become vulnerable. Kumogakure, the nearest great power, was notorious for seizing resources. He didn't trust Danzo to honestly handle such a discovery, and the ninja world was already drained by the Shinobi Wars. For now, Mu Yue decided to research it himself. He'd already asked Fuka Sosetsu for a generous supply of ore to work with. Other Snow Country rewards were trivial. The ones from Konoha, however, were very valuable. 3 scrolls lay on Mu Yue's table. Although he had only asked for the Flying Thunder God, Hiruzen Sarutobi had sent 3 ninjutsu scrolls. Flying Thunder God, Water Release, Water Severing Wave, and Heavenly Tears. Hiruzen said they were extra rewards for Mu Yue's significant contributions to the Ninja Academy. Free stuff pleased Mu Yue. He'd already mastered Water Severing Wave to a decent level, but it was Senju Tobirama's high-level water release. Without an authentic source, it would be hard to use reliably. Because he'd obtained Flying Thunder God, Mu Yue decided not to study sealing techniques or breathing techniques that night. He spent the whole evening on Flying Thunder God instead. Is Flying Thunder God too difficult, or do I lack spatial temporal talent? He wondered, holding the scroll. Practically speaking, once he grasped it, he'd be fine, but after practicing all night, he still hadn't seen any proficiency appear on his panel. He read the scroll a few more times before bed and finally closed his eyes. It took several days for Obito and the others to gain proficiency in the breathing technique. Tough ninjutsu were often slow to register. Mu Yue set himself a schedule. For the next 10 days, he would devote every evening to Flying Thunder God. If there was no progress after 10 days, he would cut his time on it to 1/3. If after a month he still hadn't made headway, he'd stop. Flying Thunder God would be useful, but it wouldn't change him qualitatively. It would just be extremely convenient. Teacher Mu Yue, is there anything dirty stuck on me? Rin Nohara checked her clothes and looked down nervously. No, you don't need to worry so much. Haven't you met her before? Mu Yue said with a smile. While testing his Byakugan, Mu Yue had unexpectedly noticed Tsunade had returned to the village. To help Rin Nohara progress, he'd arranged for Tsunade to tutor her for a while. Mu Yue could accelerate his students' learning with his teaching skills, but he was ultimately a transmigrator and didn't know the depth of the ninja world's medical lore. Tsunade, the strongest medical ninja in the world, was far beyond him in that field. After all, it's Lady Tsunade. Mu Yue's reassurance put Rin at ease. She looked eager. Tsunade was Rin's idol, a medical genius who could also fight without being a hindrance. Even though Mu Yue had already taken Rin to eat with Tsunade once, the girl still felt a little nervous. If all goes well, you'll see her a lot for a while, Mu Yue added, and Rin nodded expectantly. Learning from her hero was different from learning from him. Mu Yue led Rin to Tsunade's courtyard and knocked. The door opened quickly, but it wasn't Tsunade. Shizune stood there with a surprised look. Teacher Mu Yue? She greeted him. Mu Yue smiled gently and nodded, and saw Tsunade sprawled on the sofa inside with no care for her appearance. Did Lady Tsunade work late last night? She looks exhausted, Rin asked. Well, yes. Shizune hesitated, then decided to smooth things over and preserve Tsunade's reputation. You're back from your mission, right? Perfect timing. She wants beggar's chicken. Tsunade had gone straight to find Mu Yue after returning from the Land of Fire capital without going home, only to find he was out on a mission. Beggar's chicken is no problem. I'll send a shadow clone to buy the ingredients, Mu Yue agreed, then led Rin to sit on the sofa next to Tsunade. The girl's presence didn't faze Tsunade at all. She remained sprawled, limbs everywhere. As expected of Lady Tsunade, still working every day even now, Rin murmured, imagining her idol toiling through the night. Shizune brewed tea and set a cup for each of them. Mu Yue took his tea and then brought up the tutoring again. About teaching Rin for a while? You mean learning from me? Tsunade replied after a moment. Mu Yue had mentioned it at the end of the chuunin exams, but circumstances had forced a postponement. Let me see how much she's learned first, Tsunade said, then directed Shizune to catch a live fish from the courtyard. Casually pulling out a kunai, Tsunade made a long, narrow incision along the fish's flank and set it in front of Rin. Treat it with your medical ninjutsu, she ordered, arms crossed. Rin nodded and placed her hands over the fish. A green healing light blossomed from her palms, and the fish's wound closed smoothly under the mystical palm technique, leaving no scar as if it had never been cut. Tsunade didn't stop there. She tested Rin's detoxification skills and pushed the limits of her healing. The continuous trials drained a lot of Rin's chakra. She breathed heavily and worried inwardly whether she'd impressed Tsunade. She'd only been a ninja a few months, trained mostly by Mu Yue, and she wasn't sure whether her level was average or excellent among other medical ninja. Rin has excellent talent in medical ninjutsu, and she studies very diligently, Mu Yue said when the tests ended. Rin brightened and instinctively glanced toward Tsunade. I can see that. It's rare to have this level of medical ninjutsu at such a young age, Tsunade admitted. In medical techniques, Tsunade believed no one rivaled her knowledge, and she'd taught before. A quick comparison showed that Shizune, who'd been instructed by Tsunade for nearly a year, wasn't as skilled as Rin. Shizune and Rin had graduated together. This usually meant one of two things. Rin's talent was exceptional, or Mu Yue's instruction was extremely effective. Before meeting Mu Yue, Tsunade would have assumed it was natural talent, but now she wasn't so sure. Rin's smile was all warmth. Being praised by her idol was a rare joy. "Oh, and you must have learned super strength from Mu Yue. Use it, I want to see," Tsunade said, remembering Rin's display during the chuunin exams. Rin agreed, and because super strength wasn't suitable indoors, they stepped into the courtyard. Under Tsunade's watchful gaze, Rin concentrated chakra into her hands and unleashed it. Boom! The strike cracked the ground. A 4-meter radius of earth fractured. Shizune's mouth fell open. It was her first time seeing the destructive power of super strength. Despite her similar build, Rin had smashed the ground with a single punch. Well, Mu Yue, she really does have my super strength," Tsunade remarked, lifting an eyebrow. Rin didn't understand why Tsunade mentioned Mu Yue and stood bewildered for a second. Mu Yue saw through the implication and smoothly interjected, "Just tell me what dishes you want tonight. Add a spicy chicken dish," Tsunade said without hesitation. 353. Uchiha Problem. Tsunade and Mu Yue's conversation left Rin Nohara even more bewildered. How had the topic suddenly jumped to eating? Had she accidentally zoned out for a few minutes? "Ahem, this chakra control is quite good," Tsunade said, clearing her throat and putting on a serious expression. Controlling chakra was the key to monster strength, and Rin's ability to use it already proved her aptitude. After watching Rin's medical ninjutsu and monster strength, Tsunade had more or less decided what Rin's next lessons would be. "Then, Shizune will be yours to teach. I don't care how you do it, but in 6 months I want to see real progress," Tsunade continued. The reason Tsunade, usually lazy about teaching, was willing to take Rin on was because she'd agreed with Mu Yue to temporarily swap disciples, so her overall workload wouldn't change. Also, she trusted Mu Yue's teaching ability. He might not be as knowledgeable about medical theory, but he was excellent at helping people build real strength. "No problem. I'll teach Shizune diligently," Mu Yue nodded. He wasn't as versed in medical scholarship as Tsunade, but he knew how to help someone grow stronger. "So, will I be moving into teacher Mu Yue's house?" Shizune asked, confused. She'd been told she'd be learning from Mu Yue. Tsunade had mentioned it before. And since her parents and her closest uncle, Kato Dan, were gone, she'd been living at Tsunade's house. Shizune thought Tsunade was handing her completely over to Mu Yue. If Mu Yue agrees, that could work. It'd be convenient for him to deliver meals to me every day, Tsunade mused, stroking her chin, already thinking of the perk. She'd grown used to Shizune helping out at the house, but the idea of daily free meals from Mu Yue was tempting enough to make her willing to be inconvenienced. "Lady Tsunade." Shizune's small face puffed up in annoyance. That was clearly just using her for free meals. "I think that's out of the question," Mu Yue said, shaking his head. He and Shizune weren't family, and even though she was only 9, it would be inappropriate for them to live together. Besides, Mu Yue had too many secrets. A few days' stay was fine, but long-term living required someone he absolutely trusted. Tsunade feigned regret. "Mu Yue, you're missing out. Shizune's very capable around the house." Mu Yue only smiled. Rin's image of Tsunade began to shift. She'd been impressed by rumors about the legendary Sannin. She'd only visited once before and had barely interacted with Tsunade. Now, seeing Tsunade relaxed and scheming about free meals, Rin realized there was more to her than the stories had suggested. What was the real Lady Tsunade like? With that question floating in her mind, Rin began her studies under Tsunade in earnest. "Grandma, you don't know how urgent it was. If I hadn't been there, the daimyo of the snow country and the little princess could have been in real danger." At dinner, Obito excitedly retold his adventure in the snow country. The truth was that he and Kakashi had both helped stop Fukadoto's attack, but Kakashi wasn't around, so Obito added a little narrative flourish, making himself the protagonist and Kakashi the sidekick. Yes, our Obito is amazing, saving a whole country," his grandmother praised with a smile. She didn't follow all the details, but the bit about protecting the daimyo and the princess was easy enough to grasp. Obito squirmed under the direct praise, giving an embarrassed little grin. Actually, most of the credit goes to teacher Mu Yue. He took care of most of the enemies. He didn't try to steal Mu Yue's credit outright. He knew he couldn't have defeated hundreds of ninja by himself. Just then, there was a knock at the door. As his grandmother rose to open it, Obito jumped up. "I'll get it!" He opened the door to find Uchiha Yashiro standing there. "Obito, there's a clan meeting tonight at 8. Be at Nanga Shrine on time," Yashiro said without stepping in. He didn't usually deliver such notices personally, but he thought highly of Obito, and knew Obito had missed previous meetings. This was Obito's first time attending, so Yashiro made the trip. Clan ninjas attend unless they're on a mission. Use this chance to interact with the others, Yashiro added. The Uchiha valued strength. Yashiro wanted Obito to spend time with his clan to build a sense of belonging. 8 o'clock, got it, Obito said after a moment. He'd go once. If it was boring, he wouldn't go again. He was tired of being pushed to train by Kakashi and didn't want to waste time on meaningless stuff. "Who was at the door?" his grandmother asked when Obito returned. "It was Elder Yashiro. He reminded me about the clan meeting," Obito replied. "A clan meeting, huh? Your father used to attend a lot." His grandmother trailed off, lost in memories. After dinner, Obito cleared the table, washed the dishes, and put them away. "You've become sensible," his grandmother murmured, remembering the past. Obito listened and hummed along, patiently waiting until it was almost 8. "You go, Obito. I'm getting sleepy," she said with a tired smile. "You rest well, Grandma." Obito waved and set off for Nanga Shrine. On the walk, Obito's thoughts weren't on the meeting so much as on his grandmother's health. Since he'd returned, he'd noticed she seemed weaker, moved more slowly, and looked older. She insisted she wasn't ill and refused to see a doctor. Obito couldn't very well use the Sharingan on her to force her to the hospital. Old people couldn't handle such a thing. "Tomorrow, I'll ask Teacher Mu Yue if he has any ideas," Obito decided. Unthinking, he found himself near Nanga Shrine. "Obito, long time no see," Uchiha Inaho greeted when he spotted him. Inaho had been low on confidence since being defeated by Obito last time, but he hadn't stayed bitter. Strong is strong, weak is weak. He'd simply train harder. Inaho-senpai from that day." Obito tried to recall the name. "No need for senpai. Call me Inaho. If you have time, give me pointers on my fire release," Inaho said with a smile. He'd watched the chuunin exams and seen Obito's powerful fire techniques and taijutsu. The gap in skill was clear. "If I have time, I will," Obito said, pleased. The two walked into the shrine where many Uchiha were already gathered. Obito spotted Shisui and went straight to sit beside him. Inaho joined them. "Seems the clan has high hopes for you, Shisui. First time I've seen someone at a clan meeting before becoming a ninja," Inaho remarked. Shisui, though still in ninja school, was already strong enough to take down a chuunin. The only thing he lacked was a headband. "It was just coincidence. I ran into the clan head on the way," Shisui said. Unlike Obito, Shisui was genuinely interested. He thought understanding the clan was essential to solving the Uchiha's problems. He was glad to join the youth exchanges and clan meetings. When most of the Uchiha had gathered, Yashiro nodded to Fugaku and announced the meeting's start. "How do you all think the Uchiha should develop and grow at present?" "I think we should apply for more funding," a man in his 20s spoke up. "Our police force has big responsibilities. We deserve more funding to cultivate clan talent." A murmur of agreement swept the shrine. More funding meant more pay. Hard to argue with that. "I'll try to apply, but it may not pass," Fugaku replied, feeling the eyes on him. In truth, he thought it was unlikely. Konoha was at war, and increasing police budgets when the police weren't on the front lines was a tough sell. But he didn't voice that. He didn't want to dampen spirits. An Uchiha should become Hokage and hold Konoha's core power, another voice declared. Fugaku nodded subconsciously. Becoming Hokage would indeed secure the clan's position. Others agreed, but the room fell quiet when someone added, "Becoming Hokage is important, but how do we get there?" The Sannin were the leading candidates for 4th Hokage. The Uchiha had no comparable fame. "Isn't it enough to be excellent enough to gain everyone's recognition?" Obito spoke up when silence lingered. Many turned to look. "If you were that talented, why stay quiet?" "Well said. Our clan needs that ambition," Yashiro said, looking at Obito approvingly. Others were surprised. Elder Yashiro typically didn't applaud such boldness. Have you seen the chuunin exams? Obito might be the most talented of our young generation, someone who'd watched the exams added. Indeed, Obito's showing had made him known across Konoha. After a moment of discussion, Shisui spoke. I think we should relax the restrictions on the police force and allow other Konoha ninja to join. Shisui had been studying history with Mu Yue for over a year. He believed the Uchiha's immediate problem wasn't just strength, it was perception. The clan was being watched by the Anbu, feared and disliked by other villagers. If they tried only to get stronger without addressing these social issues, the conflict would deepen. Mu Yue had suggested the police force was the core problem. A single clan controlling such a powerful institution led to fear, arrogance, and isolation. Opening the police to outsiders would force more interaction with other ninja and help ease tensions. Shisui's suggestion hit the shrine like a stone in a calm pond. How can we let others into our police force? Our crest is the force's symbol. If outsiders mess up, it'll sully the Uchiha name, people objected. Our ancestors earned our position. We can't betray them. What if someone uses it to grab the captaincy? We'll lose control of the force. Keeping clan members in the police makes things easier to handle. Outsiders would break the atmosphere. Voices rose in opposition. Even Inaho shook his head. Shisui, that's dangerous thinking. This hurts the clan's unity. A jonin who knew Shisui personally spoke up sternly. At your age, you need to study more clan history. He said it precisely because Shisui was respected. The implication was that a genius who wasn't loyal to the clan was useless. Shisui, receiving many disapproving looks, didn't flinch. He opened his mouth to explain, but someone interrupted. The clan meeting is for ninjas. Shisui isn't even graduated yet. What's a child doing here? Even Shisui frowned at being dismissed. Some of those speaking were actually weaker than he was. What's wrong with that? With Shisui's strength, becoming a ninja is a matter of minutes. Obito snapped to defend his friend. Isn't this a meeting for discussion? Are you saying inconvenient words aren't allowed? His retort, sharp from his practice arguing with Kakashi, left some of the older clan members momentarily speechless. It's not the words, it's the rules, a calm jonin replied. Genin and chuunin might be shy to contradict Obito, but a jonin had no such concern. A gifted junior was still a junior. Fugaku stepped forward. My mistake. I meant to let Shisui experience the atmosphere in advance, he said, seeing Shisui's comments had stirred anger. Even if Shisui is talented, rules must be followed, a middle-aged member said in a deep voice. Fugaku had to back down. He couldn't push back against the elders. Shisui, seeing the situation had become embarrassing for Fugaku, composed himself and walked out of the shrine to avoid further trouble. The meeting had turned ugly, and Obito, bored and annoyed, followed Shisui out without a backward glance. 354. Exchange disciples. How boring. I'm not going next time. Obito made up his mind as he left the shrine. He had no intention of wasting his time at the Uchiha clan meeting. It felt to him like a gathering of self-important adults who would dismiss anyone who said something inconvenient. You can come, but don't bother using your main body. Send a shadow clone to listen in, Shisui suggested. Most Uchiha attend those meetings. You can learn the clan's situation just by hearing what they talk about. Despite having been rebuffed by many Uchiha at the meeting, Shisui still wanted to observe. History was useful, but solving the clan's current problems required understanding its present. What the meeting had taught him, though, was blunt. The weak had no voice in the Uchiha, not even geniuses. Talent bought privileges, but not a say in major decisions. That was why Shisui suggested a clone. If you weren't strong, your opinions wouldn't count anyway. If I use a shadow clone, the clone will probably argue with me. They never take nonsense, Obito replied, self-aware and amused. He'd learned his clones mirrored his will. If he didn't want to do something, neither would they. Your clones really have character, Shisui said, half teasing. Obito scratched his head and laughed. Thankfully, his clones didn't fail him at crucial moments. Otherwise, he'd have to find another clone technique to practice. They split up at the crossroads. Shisui went home to train. He needed strength. He wasn't the top among Mu Yue's students anymore, and he had no influence at the clan meeting. After seeing Kakashi and Metgai's rapid progress, and wanting power to address clan matters, Shisui decided to graduate early and join an internship. He'd told Mu Yue about considering an internship in his second year, but hadn't committed to graduating. Now he had. Obito didn't go straight home. It was too early to sleep, and training at home would risk waking his grandmother, so he went to a quiet grove to cultivate. He didn't hold any strong grudge about the clan meeting. Aside from his grandmother, Shisui was the only Uchiha he felt close to. The rest were distant, and Obito thought they'd been a bit hasty in dismissing Shisui. The next day, he went to the south border forest to train. Before starting, he asked Mu Yue for advice about his grandmother. "How can I get Grandma to agree to go to the hospital?" he asked, worried. "Tell her the hospital is offering free checkups," Mu Yue said after a moment. Older people often avoid the hospital for two reasons. They think nothing is wrong, or they don't want to spend money. Offer it free, and they usually come. "You can also say the first 50 people get eggs," Mu Yue added. "Will she come if I say that?" Obito asked, puzzled. In his eyes, a checkup was cheap, and eggs were cheap, yet Mu Yue had learned how much small incentives mattered. "Try it. If that doesn't work, I'll think of something else," Mu Yue said. If freebies couldn't tempt her, he'd ask Lady Tsunade for help. Use nearby resources. Obito jotted down the plan and ran home. On the way he passed Shizune, but they weren't close and he was in a hurry, so he didn't stop to greet her. Shizune noticed him and wondered aloud why Mu Yue's training spot was so remote. As she wandered, a shadow clone noticed her and led her to Mu Yue's main body. Shizune expected to see only Mu Yue, but instead found several clones, and Kakashi and Shisui were there too. She knew both. Kakashi had entered the academy with her but graduated earlier, while Shisui had been in her class during special training. They were acquaintances, not close friends, so she didn't interrupt. Mu Yue turned to her. "What's your chakra nature?" he asked. Shizune blinked. She'd never had it tested. Lady Tsunade had already taken her on as a medical disciple, so Shizune hadn't bothered with many standard tests. "Sunda said she'd teach me medical ninjutsu," Shizune replied. "I haven't used chakra paper." "Let's test it now." Mu Yue produced a sheet of chakra paper and handed it over. He had already appraised her and expected she'd focused on medical training. Shizune thanked him, gathered chakra, and poured it into the paper. The sheet quickly rippled and darkened. Lightning release. Mu Yue mused. Lightning chakra, not ideal for the breathing technique he considered, because while lightning breathing amplifies lightning release, it's hard to master, and the effect only becomes exceptional at mastery. Shizune didn't show natural aptitude for the explosive power lightning breathing emphasized. "Learn to control your breathing by copying my posture," Mu Yue said. He decided to teach her basic breathing first. Basic breathing would increase training efficiency and make learning other breathing techniques easier, without requiring the painful effort needed to master an advanced breathing style. Shizune trusted Mu Yue and applied herself diligently, even though the materials were unfamiliar. Mu Yue sketched out her course. Start with basic breathing, refine the mystical palm technique, then learn super strength and the chakra scalpel. With Tsunade's constant instruction, Shizune already had a solid foundation in medical arts. Mu Yue only needed to add specific techniques. When Shisui finished training and rested, he found Mu Yue and told him about the Uchiha meeting and his plan to graduate early. "Mu Yue-sensei, do you think this is a mistake?" he asked. He trusted Mu Yue's judgment. "Graduating early has risks. Life always has the unexpected. But with your current strength, I don't see a problem," Mu Yue answered. Shisui's power already exceeded many chuunin. Accidents could happen after graduation, but relative to his level, he was safe. Absolute safety, even Mu Yue admitted, didn't exist. Shisui smiled at the reassurance. "Also, my armament haki feels like it's improved," he said, demonstrating by gathering chakra around his fist and imagining an invisible armor, then striking the ground. A couple of punches landed noticeably harder. Mu Yue appraised him. His armament haki proficiency had reached 70 points. Reasonable progress after more than half a year of training. "Don't rush. You're close to mastering it. Barring accidents, you should get it after graduation," Mu Yue advised. Others were progressing more slowly. Armament haki was difficult, and many disciples had limited time. Kakashi was refining his breathing and learning Transparent World. Obito was perfecting flame-breathing chakra mode, Guy was working on both 8 gates and breathing methods, and Rin hadn't started. Haki was useful, but at their current stage, other disciplines and more chakra were more urgent. Later in the morning, Obito bounded back into the forest and gave Mu Yue a thumbs up. Mu Yue smiled, already guessing the result. Grandma really was sick, but it wasn't serious. I'm glad we went early, Obito said with relief. Older people have weaker resistance. Keep a close eye on her health, Mu Yue warned, then looked thoughtful. He wondered whether Madara Uchiha might ever use Obito's grandmother as a trigger to push him toward darkness. If Obito's feelings could be quantified, Mu Yue believed his grandmother and Rin would rank very high in trust. Kakashi was harder to pin down. If his grandmother were to die in front of him, Obito would likely activate his Mangekyo Sharingan. If only his grandmother died but Rin and others were safe, Obito would probably not go dark, though his personality could change. If both Rin and his grandmother died tragically, Mu Yue couldn't predict the outcome. I'll arrange a shadow clone to watch over her, Mu Yue decided. All right, if Grandma's health worsens, I'll tell her it's a free checkup, Obito replied, then sprinted away to train. The thought that Kakashi had been training a whole morning longer rankled him. Half a day less of practice meant a full hard-earned gap. Watching his students train so intensely, Mu Yue turned his attention to Flying Thunder God. It wouldn't transform his power, but it was extraordinarily convenient. He used the shadow clone learning method and poured everything into it, but after 2 days, there was still no progress. Everyone's working so hard, no wonder they're all getting stronger, Shizune said, pausing from her breathing practice. Training in such an environment was new to her. She'd mostly trained alone with Tsunade. Seeing peers, even younger ones, pushing themselves filled her with a little guilt when she paused. Shizune spent most of the day on breathing and taijutsu, the rest on medical ninjutsu. She arrived tired, worried she wouldn't absorb anything, but the results were surprisingly good. Mu Yue-sensei really teaches better than Lady Tsunade, she thought, comparing her memories. She respected Tsunade, but Mu Yue's instructional methods, especially for medical techniques, felt clearer, and she seemed to learn more easily with him. She couldn't wait to surprise Tsunade in half a year. Rin, meanwhile, who was learning directly under Tsunade, continued to appreciate Tsunade's depth as a medical ninja. No question went unanswered. But Rin also discovered Tsunade's more human side. Lady Tsunade, it's time to wake up, Rin said, exasperated, staring at the Sannin who lay collapsed from a hangover. The strongest medical ninja in the world, who never rose early, was currently failing at mornings. 355, Mastery Level Wind Escape. Obito, stop training for now. I have a new ninjutsu to teach you, Mu Yue said as the session was winding down. He still had a technique that suited Obito perfectly and hadn't shown him yet. Today was a good chance to help Obito with his grandmother's problem and maybe earn a sizable reward. A new ninjutsu? All right. Obito stopped immediately and looked at Mu Yue, excited. He was sure it had to be powerful. He already had a good arsenal of fire release techniques. If it wasn't useful, there'd be no point in teaching it. This one's called Fire Style, Orochi Nagi, Mu Yue said. The full name was Ura 108 Shiki, Orochi Nagi, a special move from Koaf's Kusanagi style. Localized as a Hokage skill, it became a notable fire release ninjutsu. Mu Yue extended his arm. Fierce flames burned in his palm, and the instant he threw them, a vast blaze consumed everything ahead of him. This is a ninjutsu without hand seals. You can use it without hand seals even if you don't enter flame-breathing chakra mode, Mu Yue explained. Obito's eyes lit up. A ninjutsu without hand seals, perfect. No need to practice one-handed seals or simplifications. This would be as convenient and cool as Kakashi's purple lightning. This jutsu also has a stronger application, Mu Yue continued. If you enter flame-breathing chakra mode to strengthen your body, you can compress the flames much more. Mu Yue switched his breathing technique and entered flame-breathing chakra mode. In an instant, intense flames erupted from his whole body, and Obito felt scorching heat even standing nearby. The flames on Mu Yue's body gathered into his palm and darkened as they were continuously compressed. When Mu Yue hurled the compressed fire, it detonated on impact. Boom! The blast turned the area into a furnace. The ground was blown into a wide crater, and hot embers scattered everywhere. Mu Yue formed a circular flame shield beside Obito to protect him from the fallout. When it faded, Obito stared at the scorched landscape. Tens of meters around them was blackened and pitted, as if a barrage of powerful ninjutsu had struck. Other disciples training nearby were startled by the commotion. "Teacher Mu Yue's fire release is so strong," Shizune exclaimed. She rarely saw Mu Yue fight and hadn't realized his strength. In her mind, he was the warm, sunny instructor who also cooked well. Kakashi silently increased the speed of his sword practice. This technique would be dangerous in the future if Obito learned it. "So amazing!" Obito burst out. Smack! Mu Yue tapped Obito's head with an accurate finger. "Don't get carried away. Your Orochi-Nagi is still far from reaching this power." There were many reasons Mu Yue's Orochi-Nagi was so powerful. His flame-breathing chakra mode was perfected, his nature transformation was advanced, and his chakra reserves were huge. Orochi-Nagi is more suited for close to mid-range use. Its range is much smaller than the Fire Dragon Flame Bullet, Mu Yue added, briefly explaining its combat application. Yes, teach me quickly. I think this suits me perfectly." Obito nodded like an eager chick. The hardest part of Orochi-Nagi is compressing the flames. The faster and tighter you compress them, the stronger the attack. Mu Yue said and began formal instruction as Obito watched intently. "System, you taught your disciple fire style, Orochi-Nagi. Because the disciple was very grateful, you received a critical reward, Wind Release, Great Sickle Weasel, Mastery Level." Mu Yue received the Mastery Level Wind Release as a small, pleasant surprise. When training ended, Obito skipped home, replaying Mu Yue's demonstration in his head. Thanks to the Sharingan's copying ability and his already strong fire release, he picked up Orochi-Nagi quickly, though it still couldn't match Mu Yue's version. "Once I master Orochi-Nagi, I'll make Kakashi look bad," Obito decided, plotting a challenge. That evening, Uchiha Yashiro arrived again. "Elder Yashiro, something you need?" Obito asked as he opened the door. He had a good impression of Yashiro. Aside from constantly inviting him to join the police force, Yashiro had defended him yesterday. "Nothing much, just checking on how our Uchiha genius is training." "Call me uncle," Yashiro said with a soft smile. He'd come to make sure the clan meeting hadn't left Obito with the wrong impression. Yashiro valued Shisui and Obito as hopes for the clan's future and wanted to guide them. "Do you want to see a ninjutsu? We'll have to go further out. My grandma's sleeping." Obito scratched his head. "Let's go to a more open space," Yashiro agreed. Once outside the clan grounds, Obito found a good distance and pushed himself into flame-breathing chakra mode, his strongest state, though not perfect. "Fire release, great fireball technique." Obito formed the seals and poured chakra into his throat, converting it into fire release chakra and exhaling a massive ball of flame. The fireball struck and detonated, the blast illuminating the area and making Yashiro's eyes shine. Although a C-rank fire release, the Great Fireball technique was the standard test of an Uchiha's fire ability, from academy students to jonin. To Yashiro, Obito's Great Fireball was stronger than many jonins. He thought, Minato Namikaze is Obito's instructor, and Minato is Jiraiya's disciple. If Jiraiya ever became Hokage, Obito's background and strength could mark him as someone with potential for great things. "You train very hard, Obito. Your fire release has improved since the chuunin exams," Yashiro praised. Obito smiled politely. Praise had become common since he rose from dead last to top of his class. Praise from people he respected, though, still felt special. "If you run into trouble in training or life, tell me. I'll help however I can," Yashiro offered. He wanted to fully support Obito's development. "Are there advanced fire release techniques?" Obito asked, curious. "Yes, more powerful fire techniques than the ones I showed you before," Yashiro confirmed, pleased. He approved of Obito's ambition. This was the attitude of a true Uchiha striving for strength. Obito felt motivated. Even if he couldn't learn every technique right away, he could pass them to Mu Yue to teach him later. "Don't worry too much about the clan meeting. Those who opposed you were trying to be helpful, though their words were harsh," Yashiro added, working to steer Obito away from resentment. "I was doing it for them too," Obito muttered, scratching his head. "My point is we're all Uchiha. We should be tolerant and rely on our clan," Yashiro continued earnestly. Obito, however, felt the words were hollow. When he'd been dead last, He hadn't seen Uchiha Tekka defend him. It was Mu Yue who'd helped him rise. Still, because the offer came with benefits, Obito decided to tolerate the lecture for now. He pretended to listen while his mind stayed on Orochi Nagi training. Seeing Obito thoughtful, Yashiro smiled genuinely. He felt he'd succeeded in guiding another promising Uchiha, much as he had with Shisui, though Fugaku's approach was different. When Fugaku visited Shisui, he avoided directly mentioning the clan meeting at first. He talked about everyday matters like an uncle and slowly steered the conversation back to the topic. That time was my mistake, but I hope you don't let the clan meeting color your view of the clan, Shisui, Fugaku said sincerely. He had high hopes for Shisui, perhaps the next Uchiha Kagami, or even beyond. Uncle Fugaku, don't worry. I understand, Shisui replied calmly. He knew that only when he had enough strength and standing within the clan could he propose meaningful reforms. Still no progress. Maybe I really don't have a talent for space-time ninjutsu. On the 11th day of trying to learn Flying Thunder God, Mu Yue sighed as he glanced at his status panel. He'd thrown himself into training for 10 straight days. No ceiling technique, no breathing technique, only Flying Thunder God, even using Shadow Clone to speed things up. 10 days of effort and still no sign of proficiency. I'll try for another month. If nothing changes, I'll put it aside. He made his decision. For the next month, he'd keep practicing Flying Thunder God, but not exclusively. He'd split his time between Ceiling Technique and Flying Thunder God, give medical ninjutsu study a little time, then breathing technique. If Flying Thunder God still showed no progress after that, he'd shelve it. He was only 19 and had a long life, but his disciples would face danger soon. He had to develop quickly. Stubbornly pursuing an ability that produced nothing would be irresponsible. He taught his students in the morning as usual, then went to the ninja school for afternoon classes. He'd learned a fair amount of ninjutsu, but there was always room for more, and repeatedly acquiring techniques improved proficiency. After his lesson, complete one large class instruction. Evaluation. A. Reward. Earth release. Iwagakure no Jutsu. Water release. Tenkyu. Mu Yue didn't try to aim for B-rank evaluations, just to farm chakra anymore. Taking disciples on missions was a quicker way to earn that. After class, he put away his things in his new office. He had his own vice principal's office now, no longer sharing with other teachers. He wasn't fussed about titles or rooms. What mattered was whether he got the rewards. Still, it seemed awkward for him, as a vice principal, to sit in the same office as ordinary teachers, so he'd moved out. Teacher Mu Yue, vice principal. Ueda Aya and the others passing by started to greet him, then half-corrected themselves when they remembered his new rank. Just Teacher Mu Yue is fine, he said with a smile and a polite nod. He preferred to be called teacher. Principal made him think of an arrogant headmaster he didn't want to emulate. Teacher Mu Yue, I just finished my ninjutsu class, Ueda Aya said with a relaxed smile, easily returning his friendly tone. Mu Yue exchanged a few words with his acquaintances, then finished storing his materials. He rose faster than anyone, but I can't even be jealous, Ikigaya Yu muttered as Mu Yue walked away. In under 2 years at the ninja school, Mu Yue had already become vice principal, an unprecedented climb. If it had been anyone else, Ikigaya might have been seething, but Mu Yue's achievements justified it. He'd led an unusually strong class, launched special holiday training and graduation internships, all with excellent results. And Mu Yue's character, calm, unaffected, made envy impossible. He treated his colleagues the same as before, despite his rapid promotion. Ueda Aya sighed softly. It was hard not to have feelings for a gentle, handsome colleague like Mu Yue, but he seemed too perfect. The gap felt unbridgeable. She'd given up on the thought entirely since he became vice principal. After stowing his things, Mu Yue bought some groceries and went to Tsunade's house. Tsunade, stuck in a slump, was helping him with his disciples, so Mu Yue didn't mind cooking a few dishes. His food was good enough that Rin Nohara always stayed for dinner when he came. Why's tonight so plain? Just one dish, stir-fried pork with chili, Tsunade complained. She loved meat and alcohol. You should try something different sometimes. If you really want meat, Lady Tsunade, you can buy cooked food, Mu Yue said with a smile, offering an excuse. The truth was he wanted something vegetarian that night. He couldn't say that outright. Fine, But don't you dare steal my meat. It's a teacher's privilege to eat before the students, Tsunade warned, then used chakra to strengthen her arm and snatched the meat into her bowl. For Tsunade, Mu Yue's meat dishes, indeed all his cooking, were better than anything bought outside. She'd prefer his vegetarian dishes to any store-bought meat. The first spicy bite made her smile blissfully. Between his cooking and gambling at the casino, life's little joys were saving her these days. After a few slices, she had to stick her tongue out to cool her mouth down. Shizune promptly brought her a glass of cold water. Tsunade downed it, gave Shizune a thumbs up, and kept eating. Can't you put more meat in this stir-fry, Mu Yue? I'll pay for it, Tsunade said after noticing mostly chilies remained. There's enough. Adding more would change the flavor, Shizune replied. Mu Yue had explained the balance many times and she'd remembered. Mu Yue nodded in approval. Shh, Shizune, picking up tricks from Mu Yue. How dare you annoy me, Tsunade teased and pinched Shizune's cheeks. Shizune looked to Rin with pleading eyes. Rin gave a helpless look and continued eating. After dinner, Rin went home and Mu Yue described his recent ideas about development and technique. Tsunade, seeing he'd learned a lot, told him about the yin seal, an art passed down from her grandmother Mito that stored large amounts of chakra inside the body. But as Jiraiya had warned, sealing chakra within the body was delicate and difficult. A sudden release of that stored chakra could cause internal chakra chaos. That doesn't mean the yin seal is bad, Tsunade said. It's underdeveloped. I had some ideas for improvement, but I'm not in the mood now. She unrolled a scroll with the yin seal and handed it to Mu Yue. Here, study it. Thank you, Lady Tsunade. He accepted the scroll without hesitation. Even if he couldn't practice the technique himself yet, studying the method would save him time. His sealing technique talent was good. He learned sealing faster than even Kushina. Tomorrow I'll pick a good chicken and make white-cut chicken, Mu Yue promised, hinting at a better meal. One sec, this is an S-rank jutsu, you know. An S-rank, Tsunade said, folding her arms. Whether practical or not, the yin seal was top tier. Mu Yue changed his tack and promised an all-meat feast the next day. That satisfied her. I've been thinking, Mu Yue said, if, when the seal releases, the stored chakra immediately executes a specific jutsu, like automatically triggering medical ninjutsu, wouldn't that prevent the chaos? The body would heal itself as it releases the chakra. Tsunade looked surprised. That idea matched a thought she'd had but never voiced. Mu Yue continued, you could even maintain a constant, low output in daily life to keep the body in a sort of jutsu state, granting ongoing medical ninjutsu effects. Tsunade was more surprised. His idea was even more complete than hers. Is he a prodigy in every field? She wondered aloud. Your idea is excellent. If it can be realized, the yin seal becomes far more useful, she admitted. Mu Yue smiled inwardly. This concept was essentially what would become mitotic regeneration, a technique Tsunade herself would develop later. He hoped she could push the development forward. It would benefit both of them. He could gain experience from it and discuss his similar research with her. That should be about right. Let's try it, Teacher Chen said, patting Metkai on the shoulder. Yes. Metkai nodded and adjusted his breathing, pushing his breathing technique to its limits to strengthen his body. After the chuunin exams, he'd done constant state training with Mu Yue, and since returning to Teacher Chen, he'd been working on Leaf Dragon God. The technique demanded an incredibly strong body. During the exams, he'd managed to use it only by violently forcing through the fourth gate, something he couldn't do daily without risking serious injury. So he'd been strengthening himself to use Leaf Dragon God in a safer state, 3 gates plus full concentration, 8 gates, gate of opening, open, gate of healing, open, gate of life, open. Metkai glared ahead and opened the 3 gates. Opening the 4th would require pushing his body past its limit and cause harm. With the 3 gates open, his aura surged, and even the surrounding leaves were swept back. He poured chakra into his limbs and launched himself. Leaf Dragon God. He spun faster and faster, chakra erupting and coalescing into a long green-blue dragon that shredded anything it touched. Trees were ripped apart by the suction and tearing force. Ebisu and Shiranui Genma instinctively stepped back, recalling how previous failures had almost affected them. Did he succeed? That felt powerful, Shiranui Genma said, narrowing his eyes. He did, before it just collapsed and dissipated, Ebisu replied, shielding his face against the dust. Teacher Chen smiled. Now that's starting to look like something. Metkai was his most satisfying disciple, talented and hard-working. He no longer worried about Taijutsu's future. Metkai unleashed Leaf Dragon God again. Teacher Chen answered in kind, channeling chakra into himself and forming an even thicker dragon. The two dragons collided with an earth-shattering boom, whipping up a storm that flattened nearby trees. Ebisu and Shiranui retreated further. The difference between people is immense, Shiranui murmured, nostalgic for their younger days when he could trade a move or two with Metkai in exams. Now the aftermath of Metkai's sparring could have hurt him. It's Metkai. Having him around gives you a lot of security, Shiranui continued. For Ebisu and others, Metkai's presence on missions had always been reassuring. The clash shifted. Teacher Chen, known as Konoha's strongest taijutsu user, brought a crushing force to bear. The smaller green dragon shattered under the impact and sent Metkai flying. As expected of Teacher Chen, such power! Metkai flipped up to his feet and gave him a thumbs up. That kick has 30 years of practice behind it, Teacher Chen said with a smile as he canceled his technique. With your talent, another 10 years, and you should be close. If only that other student were half as promising, Teacher Chen added, thinking of another pupil. Metkai didn't know who he meant. He just scratched his head. Right now, all he wanted was another big battle with Kakashi. Even if he couldn't reliably open the fourth gate, his current strength felt different than it had during the chuunin exams, maybe not weaker than that forced state. He grinned, eager and impatient for their next clash. 357. Golden Skyline. Kakashi woke early, washed quickly, made a simple breakfast, ate, and set off for training in the south border forest. He hadn't gone far when someone called his name, Kakashi. He turned to find several faces he didn't recognize approaching him. Last time in the grass country, one of them said with a smile, thanks to you and your teammates. If not for you, we might not have made it back. Kakashi nodded. He remembered the war mission in the grass country and that they had saved a few ninja there. Before, I heard there was a ninja named Kakashi who was cold and didn't care about his comrades. The Konoha shinobi continued. I guess that must have just been a rumor. Kakashi fell silent. It wasn't exactly a rumor. Back then, he had indeed failed his comrades during missions, and their injuries had been his burden to bear. He hesitated only a moment, then answered honestly. Sorry to disappoint you, but that was true. The man looked stunned. Weren't they praising him? Why did he contradict himself? Kakashi added, At that time I didn't know myself. I made mistakes. After the mist cleared, I could finally face what I'd done. The Konoha shinobi all gave him approving thumbs up. They were a bit older than Kakashi, but they thought him mature for admitting the truth. No matter who you were before, the Kakashi Atake I know is a genius who cares about his comrades and is very strong, one said solemnly. He'd learned about Kakashi only after being rescued and asking around. From his experience, Kakashi had been a good comrade. The others chimed in with thanks. A faint smile crossed Kakashi's face. It wasn't the praise that pleased him so much as the feeling that he was walking a path that felt right. See you. My training time is almost here, he said and started on. Oh, by the way, I watched the chuunin exams. Your sword work was amazing. Maybe I could ask for some pointers sometime, one of them called as they left. Kakashi paused, then nodded. If I have time, yes. The man introduced himself, Shiraki Ryoichi, beaming when Kakashi agreed. Kakashi acknowledged him with a small nod and continued toward the south border forest. Since he'd woken early, the short delay on the road didn't make him late. Yo, Kakashi, let's have a battle full of youthful passion. As soon as Kakashi arrived, Metkai bounded up, beaming. His leaf dragon god had become much more potent and his body even stronger. A spar now? Kakashi asked, considering. Right now! Guy grinned, flashing his usual row of white teeth. Kakashi agreed. He had been training steadily and wanted to test his progress. Obito, on his way to train, ran over when he saw them preparing to fight. Go, Guy! I believe in you, Obito cheered, secretly hoping to see Kakashi bested. Shisui also put down his equipment and came to watch. He wanted to gauge the gap between himself, Kakashi, and Metkai. Mu Yue stopped Shizune, who was about to begin her breathing technique practice. Don't start yet. Let's watch this one. Both Metkai and Kakashi excelled at Taijutsu. Shizune might learn something from observing. She nodded and joined the small crowd. The two fighters pulled back an appropriate distance, formed their confronting seals, and Mu Yue, acting as referee, called, "Begin!" Lightning breathing, full concentration. Kakashi instantly tightened his breath control to boost his body. Rock breathing, full concentration. 8 gates, gate of opening, gate of life, open. Metkai pushed himself further, opening the first 3 gates. His aura became immense, so powerful the fallen leaves stirred though there was no wind. At that close range, Shizune finally felt the weight of Guy's presence. During the chuunin exams, she'd been too far away to fully sense it. Straight to the 3rd gate, Kakashi's face grew serious as he read Guy's aura. Guy laughed loudly and charged at Kakashi. Kakashi met him head-on. After colliding, they traded a flurry of punches and kicks so fast it was hard to pick a winner. Metkai had greater raw strength, but Kakashi's agility allowed him to evade many blows. Leaf Great Whirlwind. After testing his opponent, Guy condensed chakra in his leg and struck with a crushing kick, timed perfectly. Kakashi could only raise his arm to block and was slammed back 3 meters. Guy didn't hesitate. He poured everything into his strongest taijutsu. Leaf Dragon God. Chakra erupted. A green-blue dragon formed and roared toward Kakashi. Kakashi entered the transparent world state and retreated, drawing his white-fanged short sword. His breathing quickened. Everything within him became precise and controllable. With lightning breathing, he converted a large amount of chakra into lightning release. Yellow electric light danced over his limbs and flowed into the blade, extending a glowing edge. Lightning flash! A thunderclap, a brilliant bolt of yellow light. Kakashi became lightning and drove forward. Obito watched, hoping the green dragon would cleave through the electric surge. The two techniques met in a deafening collision. The ground exploded under their feet, sending rubble and dust flying. Both are very strong, Shisui thought solemnly. Not fighters I could beat right now. He opened his Sharingan for a closer look. After studying, he decided the outcome. The dragon shattered, blood streaked across Metkai's body, while Kakashi only backed off a few meters, winded but uninjured. In a real fight, the result might differ, but in this spar, Kakashi's lightning flash had proven superior. As expected of my best friend, you still have the edge, Guy said with a big laugh. He showed no disappointment. He'd learned his weaknesses and now had clear goals for improvement. Kakashi said nothing, only felt a tightening urgency. During the chuunin exams, Guy had to force the 4th gate to draw with him. Now the 3rd gate had already brought him close. If Guy opened the 4th again, who knew what might happen? Kakashi couldn't afford to relax. Teacher Mue, is this something we should be learning? Shizune asked, confused. She'd watched intently, but beyond the opening exchanges couldn't extract much. Mue shook his head. For lightning breathing it was hard to say, and the 8 gates were a different realm. This match had not followed a normal pattern. After a few trades they immediately used their finishing moves, so there wasn't much technique to glean. If Guy could normally open the 4th gate, he would have won, Obito sighed, determined to train harder now that he knew Kakashi's level. If I perfect armament haki and refine my body flicker, Shisui mumbled to himself, already planning how he'd close the gap. Kakashi had beaten him. The undefeated Shisui wanted a rematch once he grew stronger. Everyone dispersed invigorated to resume their practice. Shizune reflected on Rin Nohara's progress. No wonder Rin got so strong. She has a great teacher like Mu Yue and friends like Kakashi and Guy. She had once been stronger than Rin in a special training, but now Rin was a chuunin with medical ninjutsu and water release skill. Shizune herself remained a promising genin. The competition only fired her up more. The training atmosphere was feverish. Idleness felt wrong. Guy, come here, Mu Yue called, stopping Guy as he prepared to practice the Leaf Dragon God again. I'll teach you a new taijutsu. Having now taught Guy Leaf Dragon God, Mu Yue wanted to pass on Golden Skyline. It differed from ordinary taijutsu. It took long practice to unleash its full destructive power. Starting early would give Guy more time to refine it. Guy dashed to Mu Yue like a child. Is it the Noon Tiger from before that countered Teacher Chen's Leaf Dragon God? He asked. The Noon Tiger Mu Yue had used had impressed them all. Mu Yue shook his head and smiled. If you master what I'm about to teach, it will be stronger than Noon Tiger. He had accumulated many powerful techniques, and Mu Yue considered Golden Skyline top tier. Guy's eyes widened. The strongest he'd seen so far were Noon Tiger and Leaf Dragon God. What's it called? He breathed. The name of this technique is Milong Legend, Sword Severing Blade, Golden Skyline. Mu Yue announced, then produced a broken nunchaku to demonstrate. He held the chain in his right hand, left hand behind his waist, extending his middle and index fingers, the method that made this technique most potent. Might Guy watched every motion, breath held as Mu Yue's aura swelled. Golden Skyline. Mu Yue pushed rock breathing to its extreme, entered the transparent world, and charged. With a drawing sword motion, his left hand propelled his right forward in a razor-straight slash, a thin, parallel line of force slicing across the clearing. A golden filament of light flashed, and the impact was cataclysmic. The ground near Mu Yue shattered into a huge crater. Trees were cut clean in two by the flash of gold. Even larger boulders split down the middle, as if an invisible blade had carved the landscape. So much destructive force, Guy exclaimed, staring at the ruin around Mu Yue. He couldn't imagine what would happen to a mountain. Everyone took note of the commotion. Guess we'll have to change training spots again, Obito muttered, looking at the devastated forest. Kakashi's expression turned serious. He already knew who would be the first to challenge Might Guy with this new technique. Is it my turn tomorrow? Kakashi thought. He felt the need to learn something new, too. 358. Training Routes. Mu Yue-sensei, why does the name of this move sound so odd? Why does it start with Milong Legend? Might Guy asked during a break. He understood names like Blade Intercepting Sword and Golden Skyline. Blade Intercepting Sword fit because the technique used a single-section staff with a chain, and Golden Skyline matched the effect, but the Milong Legend part baffled him. Mu Yue paused, thinking. It's to commemorate a ninja named Milong. The developer named it after him, he said. Then, to make the story sensible in Ninja World terms, Mu Yue recounted Milong's tale. In the war, Milong had been separated from his younger sister as a child. To prove he existed and could protect her so she might return, Milong had been willing to fabricate a heroic persona. He worked with a shadowy ninja organization to stage feats, casting himself as a powerful savior. A young admirer, later called Milong II, had once been helped by Milong and admired him greatly. By chance, Milong II discovered the truth about Milong's collusion with the Dark Organization. The organization wanted to silence Milong II, but Milong's power was a sham. He could not protect the child. Racked with guilt, Milong admitted the truth publicly and tried to save the child. He was gravely injured and died amid scorn, but the child he saved swore to inherit Milong's name and carry on his unfinished wish. To honor him, Milong II named the Taijutsu he developed, after learning the 8 extremities heaven, Milong Legend, Blade Intercepting Sword Golden Skyline, Mu Yue finished. That's the spirit of youth. Might Guy clenched his fists. With his ever-ready tear ducts, he was already in tears before Mu Yue finished. Such taijutsu must be practiced with the youngest spirit. He channeled that emotion into training and threw himself into the practice with intense enthusiasm. Mu Yue smiled, pleased. Golden Skyline suited Might Guy perfectly. He feared no hardship in training. Mu Yue thought, perhaps one day the ninja world would truly produce a Milong Legend. After all, Might Guy shouted the names of his techniques aloud. The day was spent teaching and researching the Flying Thunder God technique. The next morning, Mu Yue skipped his usual rounds at the academy. Instead, he had arranged to meet Kushina. Minato was still the only Konoha ninja who had mastered the Flying Thunder God, and his proficiency was high. Mu Yue had hoped to consult Minato, but Minato was still away. Since Minato and Kushina were close, Mu Yue hoped Kushina might have heard some of the technique from him. Mu Yue arrived 15 minutes early, but Kushina was even earlier, already waiting when he appeared. Good morning, Mu Yue, she greeted with a bright wave. They hadn't seen each other for a while, but Kushina didn't feel any awkwardness. She joked it might be because she'd been eating the bentos Mu Yue sent every day. Good morning, Mu Yue replied gently and walked over. Kushina rushed to meet him, accepting the bento he handed over. This is different from last time, she said, opening it to find ordinary wagashi. Eating the same snack all the time gets boring. Mu Yue shrugged. He hadn't been trying to impress. He simply wanted to try a different flavor. Kushina laughed, then picked up a dango and popped it into her mouth. Her eyes lit up. Even a common sweet tasted far better when made by Mu Yue. She ate all the way to the small pavilion where they met, then sat with theatrical posture. Ahem, she said, mock serious. Your snacks are delicious, Mu Yue, but your sealing technique progress hasn't met my expectations. I won't go easy on you. Then I'll trouble you, Mu Yue said. While he had come mainly to ask about the Flying Thunder God, he welcomed more sealing technique tutoring. Kushina tested him and was visibly surprised. Mu Yue handled the 5 elements seal and the 4 symbols sealing with skilled ease, answering Kushina's difficult questions smoothly. Most people learn slower as they progress, yet you're getting faster and faster, Kushina said. Pooh, Z-led. Then she slapped her palm with her fist, as if having an insight. Could this be the payoff of accumulated knowledge? Mu Yue only smiled faintly. He had shown much of his sealing level deliberately. Being open now made more sense than hiding. Kushina's pride swelled. As expected of someone I taught, she said, chin lifted, pleased. She had only taught 2 people Uzumaki sealing, Minato and Mu Yue. Even though Mu Yue had started later, his level was enough to put him ahead of most members of Konoha's sealing squads. Proud, she taught him a few more Uzumaki sealing methods. Mu Yue learned quietly. After Kushina finished, Mu Yue brought the conversation back to the Flying Thunder God. I'm learning the Flying Thunder God technique, but I'm stuck. I wish Minato were here. Kushina frowned, remembering her own attempts. That jutsu is tough. Minato tried to teach me, but I couldn't learn it at all. She added, mildly annoyed, part of the problem was Minato. When I asked how it worked, he'd just say it whooshed and couldn't explain what he meant by that. Mu Yue fell silent, troubled. If Minato couldn't explain the core principle, Kushina likely couldn't help either. They talked at length and concluded Kushina couldn't offer the guidance Mu Yue needed. Still, she had taught him more sealing techniques, and he gave her a hot stir-fried lunch as thanks before they parted. That afternoon, Mu Yue returned to the south border forest to coach his disciples. Kakashi had been hoping Mu Yue would teach him a flashy new ability. After all, Obito and others had picked up striking techniques recently, but Mu Yue didn't reveal anything dramatic at once. Halfway through training, Mu Yue stopped and explained, you can now use Transparent World, which fixes reaction issues, but you also need to learn the Lightning Release Chakra Strengthening method. It lets you reinforce other parts of the body. When lightning breathing reached a constant state, it didn't just sharpen nerves. It included ways to fortify muscles and other body parts, increasing the body's explosive power to strengthen techniques. In short, Mu Yue wasn't teaching a new flashy jutsu. He was giving Kakashi advanced conditioning for lightning breathing. Kakashi had hoped for something as overtly powerful as Obito's fire style, Orochi Nagi or Metkai's golden skyline, but he accepted the training with seriousness. Mu Yue had already taught him breathing technique fundamentals and armament haki. This conditioning was likely the most suitable next step. In terms of lightning release jutsu, Kakashi already had purple lightning and fake darkness, supported by earth release techniques he'd practiced himself. His lightning breathing had reached a steady stage, and Transparent World was mastered. What Kakashi lacked most now was the physical base, more chakra and durable strength, so using full-power lightning flash followed by purple lightning wouldn't leave him crippled. Increasing his reserve and combining it with armament haki would make him far more effective. Understanding that, Kakashi trained harder than ever. Mu Yue had explained the breathing technique's 4 stages. Kakashi was just entering the second. Once he reached the third, he could access lightning breathing chakra mode and gain a significant boost. That evening, Mu Yue spent no time on the Flying Thunder God. Instead, he focused on sealing technique research. The yin seal he had obtained from Tsunade was his current main subject. This was a new challenge, not simply learning, but deciphering the yin seal to develop a similar ninjutsu. Having learned from Kushina, his sealing research progressed smoothly. It felt better than trying to learn the Flying Thunder God, where he had felt no progress at all. Here, though difficult, he could feel himself advancing. Root office. Bang! Hiruzen is far too conservative. At a time like this, he still wants to limit Root's power, Danzo Shimura fumed, slamming his hand on the table. With the world growing more chaotic, Danzo repeatedly pressed Hiruzen Sarutobi to expand Root's influence to secure Konoha's advantage in the war, but each time he was rebuffed. He was allowed only to replenish losses, not expand. Hiruzen insisted Konoha's current position was stable and expansion unnecessary. The advisors sided with Hiruzen. Danzo was livid. He believed Konoha should press its advantage, furthering its gains in the conflict to secure supremacy among the villages. But he had no recourse. Hiruzen and the advisors blocked him. Must I build power covertly? Danzo turned the issue over in his mind. He had two secret options: illegally increase Root's numbers within Konoha or cultivate Root forces outside the village. The first was impossible. He'd just been reprimanded. That left the latter, but it was messy. Ninjas trained outside Root's official channels wouldn't be recorded as Root, nor as official Konoha ninjas, meaning no funding from the village. Still, Danzo saw no better choice. The war had reduced Root's overall strength, veterans were dying, and new recruits weren't yet of the same caliber. A Barame Ryoma, standing nearby, cut in. Lord Danzo, we can strengthen the organization without expanding. Improving the current personnel will raise overall effectiveness. Ryoma was a senior Root member, ranking below only Danzo and Orochimaru, and he knew Root's problems well. Hayate Mugetsu, isn't he good at teaching? We could have him train new members. Ryoma suggested. Hayate Mugetsu. Danzo's eyes flickered. He had reservations. Teaching academy students differed from training Root's elite chuunin-level forces. Still, it was worth a try. Bring me Mu Yue's records from when he entered the ninja academy, Danzo ordered. Kakashi and Obito had made strong impressions during the chuunin exams, and Mu Yue had taught them. Danzo wanted to see exactly what role Mu Yue had played. Soon, a Root agent presented Mu Yue's academy records, class performance, holiday training reports, the whole file. Danzo compared them to other instructors' records and immediately understood why Hiruzen had once wanted to keep Mu Yue. Even limited to teaching at the academy, Mu Yue was a talent. It would cost little to test him. Success would be a bargain, failure a minor loss. Danzo took up a scroll and began to write. 359. Benefit after training with Mu Yue on Golden Skyline for a while, Metkai returned to Teacher Chen's squad. Without him, the team couldn't accept many missions. Shiranui Genma and Ibisu had both only been genin for under a year. Teacher Chen thought it over and accepted a B-rank mission. B-rank jobs usually involve other shinobi, but they're rarely higher than genin in skill. Most are from smaller villages or rogue nin. With Metkai back, Teacher Chen felt comfortable that even unexpected complications could be handled, and he also saw the mission as a training opportunity for his less experienced students. We haven't even finished 2 C-rank missions yet. Are we really doing a B-rank? Ebisu asked, surprised. Isn't that great? B-rank pays a lot better, Shiranui Genma chuckled. He'd studied mission ranks. He knew what this job would demand. Their team's strength was more than enough. C-rank missions only deal with civilians, Teacher Chen explained. They don't sharpen combat ability. His real aim was to push Ebisu and Genma. Metkai's presence had motivated them to train harder, and Teacher Chen liked what he'd seen. As for Metkai, given the missions they could pick up now, they wouldn't provide much for his own growth. But Teacher Chen thought that, with a bit more contribution, Metkai could become a special jonin on Taijutsu alone. Youth is for fighting stronger opponents, Metkai declared loudly, giving a thumbs up. Genma mirrored the gesture. With Guy around, he could fight without worrying. They met the client, set off, and Teacher Chen deliberately fell back a little so Metkai trailed only a short distance behind the rest. Guy, when a fight breaks out, hold back. Don't wipe out everyone at once. Let Genma and Ebisu take care of their opponents, he said quietly. He worried Guy, excited as he was, might finish the battle instantly with the Leaf Dragon God and rob the boys of experience. Understood, no problem, Metkai grinned. On the second day out of the Land of Fire, they ran into trouble. 6 attackers, none wearing headbands. Teacher Chen sheltered the client while Metkai and the 2 Janins split the enemies. Guy could have ended it instantly, but he restrained himself, keeping his suppression light and watching Genma and Ebisu. Ebisu was nervous. This was his first field fight against outsiders. After a few exchanges, he realized they were weaker than he'd feared and relaxed. Facing two attackers, he used clever taijutsu to parry and force them backward with his fists. For a moment, he felt as if they were worse than academy students, but he knew better. It wasn't that the foes were pathetic. He'd simply improved. Under Teacher Chen's guidance and through his own hard work, Ebisu wasn't the same boy who'd been knocked out in the first round of the grade-level practical exam. "Ebisu, watch out!" someone yelled. The two attackers engaging Genma had taken a hit and then tried to ambush Ebisu. "Enemy confusion technique," one of them shouted. Ebisu didn't hesitate. In an instant he deployed the jutsu that had once saved him, elusive, alluring clones of several older sisters, each posing seductively. Teacher Chen, watching close by, felt his nose tingle and an involuntary nosebleed start. "This kid's been practicing. It's even better than before," he muttered. The rogue shinobi were thrown off. One sword stroke stalled for a heartbeat, enough for Ebisu to use body flicker and slip away. Annoyed, the rogue drew his blade and cut through the apparitions. Lightning release, electric beam. Genma spat senbon from his mouth, flicked out a few shuriken, and unleashed his lightning release. One stunned opponent went down under Genma's sudden offensive. 3 remaining rogues found themselves quickly surrounded by Genma and Ebisu. Seeing his teammates gain the upper hand, Metkai stopped holding back and unleashed his true power. Rock breathing, full concentration, leaf, great whirlwind. Metkai cried, channeling his breath and throwing all his force into a spinning kick. I didn't need the 8 gates for this. These enemies weren't worthy of that expense. A tremendous force hit 2 rogues near him, and they were hurled unconscious, crashing heavily to the ground. "I thought we might meet Jonin-level opponents this time, but you weren't even showing your full power, guy," Genma said after finishing with his enemies. He'd expected a chuunin at least to check Metkai. "You all did well, starting to look like my disciples," Teacher Chen said with a straight face. Ebisu's mouth twitched. Given Teacher Chen's crimson, unwiped nosebleed, the proclamation came off less hosing and a little ridiculous. Teacher Chen wiped his face again and proceeded to debrief Genma and Ebisu, pointing out mistakes and improvements. Metkai, of course, had no corrections to receive. He'd finished his opponents fast and clean once he'd decided to. They met no further trouble, delivered the client safely, and returned to Konoha. Shortly after passing through the gate, they ran into another of Teacher Chen's students. Teacher Chen, a tall, well-built young man of about 1.75 meters, greeted him respectfully. "Is this guy Shidi?" He looked over at Metkai. He'd never met the boy, but had heard Teacher Chen describe him. Guy's distinctive style was recognizable. "This is Takuya Kawai," Teacher Chen introduced. "Like you, he has no talent for ninjutsu or genjutsu, but his taijutsu is far less developed than Guy's." He gave a brief nod. Metkai gave Takuya a thumbs up. He knew how hard it was to be a ninja without natural talent for ninjutsu or genjutsu. Before meeting Mu Yue, he'd spent 3 years at the bottom. Ebisu and Genma greeted Takuya as well. "Guy, I heard you're practicing the Leaf Dragon God. Can you show me?" Takuya asked, curious and eager. He'd always wanted to learn Teacher Chen's technique, but he hadn't met the requirements. Learning that Guy already practiced it, he was keen to see. "No problem," Metkai said. They wandered to a training ground. "Watch closely. If you can reach Guy's level, I'll feel a lot better," Teacher Chen told Takuya with a serious tap on the shoulder. With wars breaking out, he worried about Takuya's survival. Metkai's taijutsu compensated for his lack of ninjutsu and genjutsu, but Takuya's own taijutsu might not be enough. Takuya cleared his mind and watched. Rock breathing, full concentration. 8 gates, gate of opening, open. Gate of life, open. Metkai pushed his body to the peak of its normal limits. Leaf Dragon God demanded exceptional physical condition. Takuya couldn't help but be stunned. Amid Teacher Chen's words, this was one thing, but witnessing Guy's power firsthand, especially given that Metkai was only 9 years old while Takuya was already 18, was another. Guy was half his age and far stronger. "Focus! Here it comes," Teacher Chen warned. "Leaf Dragon God!" Metkai roared. A surge of chakra burst from him as he kicked and spun. A greenish-blue dragon of wind formed, pulling everything toward it and shredding the surroundings with violent gusts. The training ground turned chaotic under the dragon's force. Takuya stood there, eyes wide. This was the sort of taijutsu he'd always yearned for. Teacher Chen patted his shoulder and left. He'd taught what he could. The rest was up to the student. After watching Guy demonstrate, Ibisu and Genma felt new determination and went off to train. Takuya stayed a while longer, asking about Guy's regimen. I wake at 6, run till I'm exhausted, then do a morning of physical training, breakfast, more conditioning. Might Guy recited his routine seriously. Takuya listened in disbelief. He'd thought he was hard-working, but Guy's discipline outmatched him. Is it like that every day? Takuya asked. Not always. During the chuunin exams, it's different, and I cut back when I'm injured, Guy answered. Takuya fell quiet, convinced that Guy's strength was earned by sweat. Ninjas like us, no ninjutsu or genjutsu, must work harder to catch up, Guy said, flashing white teeth. You really are a genius, Takuya sighed. Teacher Mu Yue said that too. He called me a genius of effort. Might Guy's smile grew even broader. Takuya nodded. It fit. Guy was a genius of effort. I believe even with only taijutsu we can reach the top of the ninja world, Guy declared. He told Takuya the story of the master who honed himself in 8 harsh environments and created the 8 extremes heaven, and of Milong too, stories meant to inspire. Takuya, who'd only wanted to master the leaf dragon god, now felt his ambitions expand. Maybe he could create his own advanced taijutsu. Guy, let's work hard together, Takuya called, gratitude and resolve in his voice. Youth is for striving together. Might Guy laughed and gave a thumbs up. Oh, and for training, I recommend this green jumpsuit I wear, perfect for physical exercises. Later, Mu Yue walked home in the main district. As he approached, he casually activated his Byakugan and scanned his surroundings. He didn't detect any root or anbu lurking, but he did notice a scroll on his table through the window. He entered with a neutral expression, confirmed the scroll was where it should be, and opened it. Training Root Ninja, he read, eyes narrowing in thought. He wasn't deciding whether to attend, he would, but he debated how much to teach. Should he hold back some techniques or train normally? He needed to be careful. Even though his strength meant he wasn't personally afraid of Danzo now, keeping good relations in Konoha and smoothing things with Danzo would save him headaches. There were clear, practical benefits. Helping Danzo could raise his status within Root and possibly earn him rewarded ninjutsu. Danzo's influence could procure such rewards at little cost. Mu Yue also thought about the system rewards, whether teaching stronger Root Shinobi could push him toward higher evaluations. He had to attend, and he had decisions to make about how much to reveal. 360. Minato is back. After weighing the pros and cons, Mu Yue sat down and drafted his reply to Danzo Shimura. The opening needed no substance, just a clear declaration of loyalty to reassure Danzo that Mu Yue still regarded him as Root's leader and himself as a faithful member. After that, he shifted into the problem, but he couldn't whine about his own difficulties or outright refuse. Instead, he framed the issue from Danzo's perspective. If Mu Yue's secret special training at Root, conducted under the cover of being the ninja school's vice principal, were discovered by Hiruzen Sarutobi, it would reflect badly on Danzo. Mu Yue argued that he could go to Root to teach, provided Hiruzen definitely knew about it. If he trained Root in secret without Hiruzen's knowledge, Hiruzen might not punish him out of hand, but Mu Yue's root mark could reappear, and Hiruzen would start thinking Mu Yue was Danzo's man. That would defeat Mu Yue's carefully cultivated image. He wanted Hiruzen to see him as a staunch loyalist to the Hokage and Danzo to see him as a reliable Root operative. That dual perception would make everything he did in Konoha easier. So long as he didn't cross certain lines, he'd have plenty of help. He even softened Danzo's attitude toward Obito a little in the letter, then closed it with another affirmation of loyalty. Satisfied, Mu Yue checked the note once more and sent it off via Root's secret contact method. After dinner, he trained, 2 hours on sealing techniques, an hour developing his lightning breathing, and 2 hours on the Flying Thunder God technique. Before bed, he glanced at his status panel. His sealing technique, taught by Kushina, had improved significantly, but Flying Thunder God still hadn't budged from 0. He didn't dwell on it. He planned to keep this regimen for a month and stick to it. Early the next morning, while Mu Yue was making breakfast, someone knocked on the door. He activated his Byakugan, and seeing who it was, a small smile tugged at his lips. He already knew who was there, but he walked to the door and opened it with an air of pleasant surprise. "Minato, you're back? Is the front finally quiet?" It was Minato Namikaze, just returned from an important mission. "Not exactly," Minato replied with a smile. "Something happened with Kumogakure's Eight Tails Jinchuriki. The front's active, but the assignment I was on is finished, so I came back." Mu Yue remembered the reports. Orochimaru had tampered with the Eight Tails seal, separating the beast from its Jinchuriki. The beast went on a rampage, and Orochimaru took a horn sample, leaving Kumogakure to deal with the chaos. Mu Yue invited Minato in. "I'm making breakfast. Come in. You must be starving." Minato's timing was perfect. If even someone as adept at Flying Thunder God as Minato couldn't make progress from zero, it would prove Mu Yue's own troubles were genuine. Minato stepped inside, giving a slightly embarrassed smile. He'd calculated that if he rushed, he could make it back to Konoha in time to freeload breakfast at Mu Yue's place. He missed both Kushina and Mu Yue. "You don't have to help today, Minato. Breakfast's not much trouble," Mu Yue said, as Minato instinctively headed to the kitchen. Minato nodded and sat at the table, breathing in the aroma of the food with a nostalgic expression. It had been a long time since he'd eaten Mu Yue's cooking, or shared a meal with Kushina at Mu Yue's table. He sighed at the thought of Kushina, the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, wishing she hadn't had to bear such a fate. At his level, Minato understood how Kushina's destiny had been sealed from the moment she arrived in Konoha. Mu Yue brought dish after dish, tamagoyaki, grilled salmon. "This is rich," Minato praised, picking up a piece of fish with rice and taking a sip of miso soup, a content smile on his face. "Your cooking's improved, Mu Yue. I feel much better after this." "You just haven't had it in a while. Eat it a few more times and you'll realize it's the same as before," Mu Yue joked. While they cleared the table and chatted, Mu Yue raided several shadow clones. Some went to teach at the South Border Forest, one went to the ninja school. Once the household chores were done, Mu Yue brought up the thing on his mind, Flying Thunder God. "You really don't know how hard Flying Thunder God is until you try to cultivate it," Mu Yue complained. "I've never had this problem with any other ninjutsu. I've studied it for a long time, and I don't feel like I've gotten anywhere." "Flying Thunder God is an extremely difficult space-time ninjutsu," Minato agreed after a moment. "Jiraiya-sensei told me it's one of Konoha's toughest techniques. When Minato himself learned it, he hadn't felt it was that much harder than other jutsu. He only understood its reputation from others. If you don't mind, I can tell you how I learned it." Mu Yue welcomed the offer. Minato started from the basics. "First, you must understand, Flying Thunder God is a space-time technique. It isn't about moving extremely fast, it's about teleporting through space. You mark a point, usually a kunai or an object, with the Flying Thunder God seal, perceive the space, then use chakra to move to that marked point." Minato pulled out a kunai to demonstrate. He put a marked kunai in the kitchen, flashed to it with Flying Thunder God, then used body flicker to return to Mu Yue's side. Mu Yue nodded. He grasped the concept. At short ranges, Mu Yue's full lightning breathing speed could rival Flying Thunder God, but at distance the difference was stark. Flying Thunder God didn't expend vast chakra over distance, while he did. Minato's explanation was earnest and focused, but 3 hours later, Mu Yue was still confused. He could tell Minato was trying his best, but there were huge leaps in the logic, like being taught calculus immediately after learning 1 + 1 is 2. Mu Yue felt the problem wasn't Minato's effort. It was the nature of the technique itself, which required a different kind of intuition. "Mu Yue, have you had any insight?" Minato asked expectantly. Mu Yue hesitated. "No. Can you explain more about perceiving space? That's the part I don't get." Minato slowed his pace and tried to be even clearer, but the conceptual leap remained too large. Seeing Mu Yue flummoxed, Mu Yue decided to return the favor. He steered the conversation to the technique Minato himself had mimicked before, the tailed beast ball, and shared his own progress with what he'd been working on, the Rasengan. "That would be great," Minato said eagerly. Mu Yue concentrated chakra in his hand. A spherical ball of chakra with no elemental nature formed. They stepped outside and Mu Yue slammed the ball into a large roadside tree. The tree shuddered, and a pit gouged into its trunk, but it didn't split through. The Rasengan's power was small, but showed promise. The force is weak, but it's close, Minato observed. Given the chakra used, the effect should have been greater. The jutsu was unfinished. Mu Yue admitted he was missing a crucial step and had no further ideas. He developed the technique along the same conceptual lines as in the original plot, but hadn't perfected it. When Mu Yue explained how he'd reached this point, Minato's face lit up. Many of the problems he'd been struggling with suddenly made sense. "You've been a huge help," Minato exclaimed, thrilled. He felt a little sheepish that Mu Yue had gained nothing from his Flying Thunder God lecture and resolved to organize his thoughts so he could teach it more clearly next time. Caught up in the excitement, Minato mockingly reached for a grand name. "If it's finished, this jutsu must be called Mu Yue Tree Strike Inspiration Dual-Person Collaborative Development Ball." Mu Yue's mouth twitched. "Let's decide on the name after it's finished," he said quickly. Minato scribbled the ridiculous name down as a backup anyway. He liked it. It showed the technique was the result of their collaboration and captured the development scene. Minato didn't stay for lunch. He hadn't yet found Kushina since returning and apologized before taking his meal to her. Before he lay fatigued, he told Mu Yue he'd be relatively free for a while and suggested they meet in the evenings to discuss ninjutsu, Flying Thunder God, and the ball included.